eight reports. Item C1, the committee, the Finance Committee third quarter report. Well, it's done, it's on table.
Okay, thank you. And if you could hand that out.
It's been electronically done to the council members. It's in the community package.
Okay.
And there's one on the table.
Thank you so much.
And the recorder has one.
And I will bring up, just under my mayor's report, the zero waste conference, but that would be typical to coming under that. So if there's nothing else to add, call question on the motion. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. If we can move to public participation. And I just had, oh, here we go. Listen, just in the interest of the overall time this evening, the Village of Lions Bay Council will begin and complete council meetings with public participation up to 10 minutes, with each person who wishes to speak allocated to a maximum of 2 minutes. And thank you, Councillor Bain, for being the recorder. Council has introduced a timer for those of you who aren't aware for each 2-minute segment. The council member responsible for timing speakers during public participation each meeting will provide approximately 30 seconds notice to the speaker. When the timer first begins to sound, please complete your sentence within a few seconds and excuse yourself from the podium. So any question asked during the 2-minute segment will be captured by the recorder. And a respectful decorum is expected at all village meetings. So anyway, so welcome to everybody. And I'll begin with our list. And we have 4 people on the list this evening, beginning with Marilyn Blasson. Marilyn? Ms. Blasson? It is. Thank you.
I'll start timing me now. I'll get over there.
Yep. Thank you so much.
Okay. Anyone?
Yeah, please do.
My name is Marilyn Blesson. I live on Lions Bay Avenue, and I'm here tonight out of concern and admittedly disturbed about the tree topping that was performed on Lions Bay Avenue across from 140 Lions Bay Avenue. Last May, we were all sent out letters, the neighbors, about the tree topping. There was a picture there, what would be performed. I came back about 2 weeks ago. These trees were being completely taken out, stumps left, and the place is in a very unsightly manner right now. I want to know what is going to be done to rectify this and when it will be rectified. I don't think in West Van you could never do this without replanting. Maple Ridge you can't do this without replanting. So there has to be something there. I mean, people, the poor gentleman drives out. Have any of you been down on Lions Bay Avenue to see it? Brenda, you drive by it.
I drive by it.
Yeah.
Is this on the BC Rail?
Yes.
Property? Perhaps what I can do is recommend that the tree committee. Yeah.
I haven't been to the site,
Yeah.
but I know that there was a tree. I'm not sure if this is a tree committee approval that was done or not, but there was, I don't know what the street address is for Mr. and Mrs. Trainey's house. Are we talking across the street?
No, it's Mr. and Mrs. Barry's house across the street from them, beside the Traineys.
There was a tree committee approval maybe 6 weeks ago to do a cut there, which approved. It had no community dissent in the mail out that was sent, and I don't exactly recall what the terms were, but it was, there was some cut, there was some trim. We can have staff look it up for you, see what the terms of engagement were, but if there was any issues with the tree cutting, it would have been cut and clean.
Well, it's not clean. There's a big stump, there's stumps there, you can't replant anything with those huge stumps there. Is this what's going to set a precedent along that road now?
Well, I don't know about a precedent there, but a resident higher up from Lions Bay Avenue made the request.
He made the request and we received the paperwork on tree topping. We never got any paperwork on having the trees removed. No one got that.
Well, that's a public record. If we're talking about the same one, the tree committee approved the resident's request, which I'm sure whatever it was top or cut and clean.
No, none of us received anything. take the trees out. None of us received anything. We all received the same letter with the tree topping and a picture of what would be done and where the trees would be done.
Perhaps what I can do is, in the interest of this procedure, and not to put this aside, but could I, in the interest of this, could I make a suggestion to council that a follow-up discussion occur? Would that be of assistance?
I think that perhaps when staff has a moment, we could do the tree cut approval, the letter that was sent out.
Sure. If that would...
And
And I think what's important is maybe all of you go down there and take a look at it and see if you want that across the street from you. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If I may, Mr. Stone, you are next.
Yes, I just want to qualify there. On the railroad crossing, there were 2 permits for tree topping. And I just want to make sure that council is not mixing the 2 up. There was one further down at around 90 or 100 Lions Bay
Avenue.
as well as 140.
140.
So there probably should have been 2, Mr. McLaughlin, so you might want to look into it just to make sure it's the right one you're thinking about.
Thank you for that clarification, Mr. Stone.
You're welcome.
Mr. Stone, if you could, and thank you, Councillor Vane. Thank you, Ms. Brisson.
Once again, we have a procedure bylaw, and the bylaw says public notices of meetings should be given at least 24 hours prior to the meeting, and there has been no notification for this meeting tonight.
Oh,
About 9 months ago, I requested information about CN Rail and the preventative maintenance, and I was asking when WHEN preventative maintenance would be done on the railway right away as well as the railway, and I have not received an answer to that question. I just received a response saying that it was known that the railway is doing maintenance. I want to know when they're going to do that. And Mr. McLaughlin's aware of the situation. I think he saw it. I'd like to know why council proceeded to go ahead with the community center project without consent of council. Council passed a resolution saying that they would wanted to have or needed to have an amendment to the provincial as well as the federal grant before going ahead. And as was stated in the information provided by Mr. Consultant. Yet Mr. Consultant went ahead without the approval of council to give the okay, rather than calling a special meeting of council to see whether that would be approval of them. And I'd like to know why they did it without, thank you, without giving, without receiving the change to the provincial grant. Number 3, on May 8th, the council had a special meeting trying to rescind the 3rd reading of the 5-year plan. It was pointed out that the procedure bylaw states that the bylaws cannot be amended after 3rd reading, and council said that they would look into it. I'd like to know where in the procedure bylaw council found the ability to rescind the 3rd reading of a bylaw when it doesn't exist, yet they still went ahead and changed the bylaw. I'd like to know where.
Mr. Stone, thank you very much for that information. And I know that, so first of all, I'll just say this, is that Ms. Kuntz is away this week, and she is so deliberative in posting everything. So I just need to say that if there was no posting for this meeting, it is truly an oversight on the village's part, and we apologize for that. So I want to make sure that you're aware of that. I think that we've gone over that we had preliminary approval that with the provincial grant, but the May 8th, I believe that Ms. Kuntz, again, she's away, but perhaps we can respond to that in writing to you because she did do a lot of deliberative work on that. And the regular process is that you rescind 3rd reading, you go back to 2nd reading, and this is before you make any changes. You cannot make a change at third reading.
Yeah, but
So-
you can't rescind the third reading. It's not in the procedure bylaw.
Yeah, so I know that she's done a lot of deliberative work on that, so we'll have her report back on that, because I believe that was.
But you were at the meeting where you went ahead, so you must have some information.
That's
How could
correct.
you,
I think that, Ms. Lee, were you recording at that meeting? No. No, okay. But as a parliamentarian, I don't know if you can make comment on this, but we'll make comment on that. But the regular, my understanding is that it is the normal protocol under Robert's rules is that you rescind third, you go back to second.
It's not in Robert's rules.
No, I think
Okay.
the best thing to do is just to
Just wait.
review the minutes
Yeah.
and background information.
On for the
so that
other
you
May
can refresh your
meeting.
memory.
Okay, thank you very much. And so we'll have staff report back at the September 16th.
When and to where? will
September
this report?
16th? Yeah, September 16th. So Mr. McGradu, our interim CAO, will ensure that there's a
On
report.
September 16th.
At the September 16th.
I've been waiting 9 months for a report on the CN rail.
I think he's out of order.
If I can just move us along, and
Thank
thank
you.
you very much for your questions. And just with regard to CN Rail, I'll just make this brief comment that we're all awaiting comments back from CN Rail on a variety of different issues. So thank you very much, and we'll certainly pass that along again.
To who, by who, and when am I going to get a response? That's just a general statement you're making,
Yeah.
Mrs. Broughton.
With really, truly, in our interactions with CN Rail, that would be about as specific as we can be.
It's 9 months.
Yeah, and we hear that.
And Mr. McLaughlin
And
was
we
aware a year ago.
undertake consideration of that frustration, so, and can understand that. So if I may
What
ask,
about the other issue?
I don't know,
Council going ahead with,
Will respond.
with the community center.
I-
They passed a
I
resolution
will-
saying that,
maybe you can respond to that, September 16th?
Sure.
Yeah, I'll just ask Mr. McGradu to respond September 16th, at our September 16th meeting. So as I said, in reading out the procedures for this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Louis Peterson, Dr. Peterson, please come forward. Thank you.
Mayor Broughton and councillors, I have 4 points on my submission. First one is about the land use master plan, which I say places a strong emphasis on market forces to drive development as a way to increase our tax base. There is insufficient emphasis on the 8 core themes of our official community plan that define the tangible and the intangible values of our village. Second point has to do with the OCP, and I say here that no action should be taken on the LUMP until the overdue OCP has been reviewed and updated, and that's a matter for the next council. The third point is that our Lions Bay is a community of a small number of homes, about 500. It's in a forest setting on the mountainside bordering Howe Sound. It is this setting that gives the village much of its intrinsic character and value. It's an OCP core value to be preserved. And number 4, with this in mind, the recent felling and topping of trees on Isleview Place gives cause for concern. As but one example where the protection of our trees and green space may have been ignored. And then I put in a little bit here in Latin, tempus fugit et non regreditur. If you change the village in some way that's permanent, you will never be able to get it back. So my question is, were the proper procedures and the permitting processes followed in the cutting of the trees on Isle View? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll leave that to staff to respond. If I can, just move us along to Carol Conlon. Thank you.
Mayor and council, I have attended council meetings and have been following the council items for the past 6 months concerning the trees that were cut on Isleview Place by Michael Broughton on behalf of DC Strata 815. Can council please tell the public how many of the trees cut were found to be on village-owned property?
If I can turn to the interim CAO, and whether you wish to answer that at this time or later in the meeting or at a different meeting, but that will depend on whether or not I recuse myself.
Madam Mayor, there's an item on it and later on. in the
Okay,
agenda.
Thank you. If I can then, thank you very much, Ms. Conlon, and move along to Ms. Penny Nelson to delegations. And you have up to 10 minutes, and thank you very much again to Councillor Bain. Ms. Nelson, welcome.
Good evening, Council. I'd like to mention that I'm here to speak to the councillors on a topic that I put in the delegation form as being enforcement of the Lions Bay ethical conduct policy for elected officials. So I'm specifically here to speak to the elected officials. And I'm going to give a copy of this to the recorder after, because I'm still waiting for the corrections to be made to my presentation from September last year, which were recorded inaccurately. They still haven't been corrected. Just for the record, I'd like to state that I do have correspondence going with Grant Magadu and Mandy Kuntz, and we're still trying to get that corrected. Having said that, I'd like to say that during this council term, an inordinate number of meetings have gone in camera, with section 91C and G being given as reasons for doing so. That is, labour relations or other employee relations, and litigation or potential litigation affecting the municipality. On February 4th this year, when the Finance Committee's report was being discussed, Councillor Ronsley asked Councillor McLaughlin what he'd said the legal fees were, and he replied, "I didn't." He did say it was less than last year, but I could find no breakdown of legal fees in that report, so I did some research. All this information is available on the village website. The SOFI reports for 2012 and 2013 and the lists of checks issued in the first and second quarters of 2014 show that in this council term, large sums were paid to 4 different law firms, including our regular attorneys Murdy and McAllister, more recently Don Lidstone, and also 2 sets of labour lawyers, Butler Workplace Solutions and Roper Grail. All in all, on this council's watch, our legal fees have totaled $127,543. In fact, in 2013, that's in the last fiscal year, $86,518 was spent on legal fees, which was almost 8% of our tax revenue for that year. 8%. The total amount of $127,543 could be higher, because SOFI reports only specify suppliers who were paid more than $25,000 in a particular year. Also, I might have missed some checks in those long lists of checks issued. So our legal bills during this council term may in fact be more than $127,543. Given that there's no record of the village being involved in any other litigation other than staff issues, and combined with inappropriately high staff turnover for a small municipality such as ours, a reasonable individual would assume that the bulk of those legal fees are related to, as the community charter calls it, labour relations or other employee relations. Our ethical conduct policy for elected officials has been around for at least 15 years. It says, and I'm quoting from this policy, it says, as representatives of the Village of Lions Bay, council members are to conduct business in a manner that is respectful of all residents, taxpayers, staff, and other members. The puzzlement is, and this is my puzzlement, if our ethical conduct policy has been followed by all members of council, staff turnover would not have been so high, and our legal bills would not be $127,542 or more. In terms of enforcement, this is what the policy says, and I quote, behaviour which is deemed to be in conflict of the above principles will be subject to such sanctions as are appropriate. And it goes on to outline what those sanctions might be. So here is my question. What specific actions have been taken by this council and or the administrator to address the issues that have given rise to the high staff turnover and these very high legal bills.
Is that the end of the presentation?
Is that the end of your
That's my
presentation?
question.
Okay,
Is that the end of the presentation? Sorry,
For
Madam
now.
Chair.
thank you very much. I literally
We can
would,
discuss in camera.
yeah.
We can stay in camera.
yeah, that's what I was going to say. Thank you very much for guiding me on that. So is that, I would just ask if there is further information that you are presenting during your delegation.
No, but I have a delegation, and the delegation, same as with all other public participation, is supposed to be interactive. And it is one of the public forums where we, as residents of our little village, can come and speak to our elected officials, not staff, but our elected officials. Now, what has happened right now is that I've asked a question, and I'd really like to hear, I think we can agree $127,543 is a lot of money for our village. So I'm here to ask councillors,
The
what
question,
specifically has been done?
through you, Madam Mayor, because the question was what has staff done? And I think.
Excuse me, it wasn't. Mr. McGrady, with all
Can you
due
just
respect.
repeat, can you just repeat
Yes,
what
I
you
will,
said?
but with,
Mhm.
with respect, Mr. McGrady, I'm
Can-
here to speak to our elected officials tonight.
But can you just repeat the last
will.
paragraph, please?
I said, what specific actions have been taken by council
And?
and/or the administrator
Okay.
to address the issues that have given rise to the high staff turnover and these very high legal bills? And I'm here to ask that of council.
Maybe I can just open with and close with that council is very proud to say that we have
Sorry,
a
Ben,
team.
are you sure you're the right person to be answering this question?
Just excuse me, Ms. Nelson, we have respectfully listened, so I'll just respectfully say this, is that we've built a staff team that at the last council meeting, while I was presiding, I was so very proud of the different reports that were being presented. And so that's what, in response to your question, what have we done to move forward? That is one of the actions that we've done. I don't know if there's anything else that Mr. McGrady would add, but I think that that's the limit of what can be said at this point. But
Could I hear from some of the other councillors potentially? Councillor McLaughlin is the head of our finance committee. Perhaps would like to comment on the legal.
Certainly, if you read the first quarter, I'm going to guess it was the first quarter financial report that I did. I discussed legal fees at great length, and I gave parameters on legal fees, and I discussed what topics they were on. And I
No,
think,
you didn't, because I read the report and I actually
are
listened to
you
the
calling me a
audio.
liar? This is kind of topical now.
No, also, I'd just like to correct Councillor
I-
McGrady,
I'm-
Councillor McLaughlin, I did go listen to the audio, just so that we know. I did go listen to the audio for the February 4th meeting 2014. And I read the report in the package and I went through every document on that report. And in fact, what the audio reflected was when Councillor Ronsley asked the question, she asked specifically, were professional and legal fees going to be sectioned out in this report? And what was on the audio as having been discussed was that they were lumped in with other things such as waste management, chlorine costs, etc. So I went and looked at the report because I wanted to see all of those numbers actually. I'd like to know what water costs too. It wasn't there.
The report that I made to the community through the community news in the first quarter raised the heading of legal fees.
mhm.
And it broke it into a variety of sections and gave parameters for it. And certainly this was months and months ahead of your queries. And I think that somewhere in the article was that the disclosure I provided was the limit that council was able to do so to the community.
Can I just point out that the Lions Bay Community News is a private business. It's not one of the official notice spots as designated by our bylaws.
This
and
report was
policies.
also received by council before it went to the community news.
I didn't look at that report.
Oh, it's over. Okay.
I can
That-
take it back,
I
and I
didn't-
can go
I
and
didn't
have a
hear
look
it. My
again. But I
apologies.
did look at the report and I listened to the audio, and I'm telling you what I took out of that now.
If I can, just with all due respect, call us to order. And I didn't hear that our time was over, but I saw your hand, Councillor Bain.
Okay. This may sound a little odd, but you've got us in a catch-22. All this stuff was discussed in closed meetings, and for the respective people involved, for their privacy, there's some things we are not able to divulge. But you're asking a question that would require us to divulge confidential information. So we can't answer your question, but you've got a serious concern that is valid. So if we answer your question, we violated somebody else's privacy, then we could increase our legal bills that way too.
So are you confirming that this council has taken action in camera?
Nothing can be stated, sorry, as a point of
Honestly,
order.
if I can just bring us to order, and if there's council members that want to respond, but we're really out of that 10-minute time, and just in the interest of bringing us to order. Councillor Ronsley and Councillor Andrew, did you?
Ms. Nelson, for clarity's sake and understanding, we are governed by the BC Charter. We do not make these rules about what must be said in camera. And when it's said in camera, it is, I believe, protected for 5 years.
That depends on which part of the community charter we're talking about. Not everything must go in camera, some things may go in camera, and these 2 instances are may go in camera.
Let's just assume, for a point of clarity, that individuals are perhaps involved, and in that regard, we are not able to do that in a public forum. And that's all I have to say.
That's fine. Can I do this via Freedom of Information request?
That's,
I'm not equipped to even respond to that question,
Freedom-
actually.
it says that in the Freedom of Information too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's something that perhaps Mr. McGrady can respond to.
I'm sorry, what's?
Oh, if it
Through
can
you,
be
Madam Mayor?
a Freedom of Information request, but I don't believe,
Can't
yeah.
take.
Madam Mayor, anybody is allowed and permitted to make freedom of information
Totally.
requests. Any item, though, that was discussed in camera remains in camera. If there's items that are tenuous, then that will be researched.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you all. If I can check in with council now, I see that Mr. Longson is here.
We have one more delegation.
Pardon me, I know that, should we go ahead with the further delegation? Okay, so let's finish the delegation. And if I can call upon Councillor Bain to reside, and we can pass along your responsibilities perhaps to another council member, and, well, you reside here.
September.
Pardon me? I'm going to excuse myself.
Oh, it's September,
Oh.
I think it's gone now, isn't it?
Councillor Ando, is that appropriate to, is that a conflict to, is that okay for everybody? Okay, Councillor Ando? If you could, would you want to reside from where you are? Okay. I'm going to recuse myself. Thank you very much. For the purpose that I'm married to Michael Broughton, and well, I feel very distant from this interest. It could be seen as a conflict of interest because I am a partner of the Lions Bay General Store and Cafe. So thank you.
Council,
Excuse me.
okay, good evening, Council. I come before you as a delegation this evening to raise a number of issues that are of concern to me and I believe to many residents of Lions Bay. First, the tape recording of the last public council meeting on July 22nd documents Councillor Ando calling me a liar. This is false and requires both a public retraction and a public verbal and written apology. Second, false and misleading information has been put forward to the community by the Infrastructure Committee. This is not only inappropriate, but in areas, in my opinion, far outside their mandate. In the Infrastructure Committee recommendation in both the summer edition of the Lions Bay Community News and posted on Lions Bay Net in the official news section, there are concerning statements. In section 300 buildings, it has 2 issues. One is an offhand comment where the postal box, which is emptied each day at 5 p.m. by contract with Canada Post, is stated by the Infrastructure Committee to allegedly be emptied monthly, which is, I think, defamatory at best. Secondly, there is questions in the report regarding the purpose of having a payphone on commercial property. And coincident to that, the payphone stopped working within a very short period of time, and in fact, it has not worked since. When I provided a correction in lionsbay.net, the responses from a committee member, from a committee member, were equally disturbing. First of all, stating that the information regarding the Canada Post box had been facetiously stated by a Canada Post authority, or pardon me, employee, and then later refers to, in another part of the report of the response, talks about how the committee deemed it to be authoritative, and so defended publishing such erroneous information. And also without any consultation or knowledge regarding the use of the payphone that were at the commercial property, which is one of two in Lions Bay, the other one's at the marina. They made comments regarding where it should be and so on. And I listened to indicate that the commercial property is in fact private property owned by BCS 815. I'm a trained ESS reception center manager, and during my training, it was indicated that cell phones, likely home phones, would go out in the event of any kind of disaster, and the phones that would be, that TELUS would attempt to maintain would in fact be pay phones. So it's taken a tremendous amount of time to try to turn around the decision made in Calgary by TELUS to save money by removing the payphone, which is another concern to me. Now, and to residents of the village. Now, a very serious concern that comes out of the kind of comments that have been made and I mentioned above is the climate and culture that the above comments breed. The owners of the commercial locations have always been proud to contribute to the village of Lions Bay, strongly driven by community-based values and love of the community. And what has happened in the last number of months since January has been an unprecedented number of detrimental issues to the commercial properties, including the strata, the 20-unit strata next to us, which is the condominiums. We have a common gateway which provides access to people from the condominiums, but also provides it allows free passage 2 to 3 times per week for the garbage, for the recycling, and so on. And so there's a very, very positive relationship between the stratas. And there has been a 40-year relationship where the village has done one pass during snowy conditions in order to ensure that there is safe passage to the condominiums. And yet that has only recently become a problem. In addition, there has been a number of events which have been quite concerning to the commercial properties, including vandalism to door locks to prevent the opening of businesses, vandalism to the back door of the store with immediate reporting to the health inspector that there was a hole in the back door which could allow possible insects and rodents. And in addition, concerns regarding postal issues that have been reported that have been salacious and really problematic. To my knowledge, in 40 years of Lions Bay, in the history of the commercial hub, the repeated interference in smooth operation of the commercial complex is unprecedented. So, as I've indicated in my request for a delegation this evening. I look forward to an apology and retraction from Councillor Endo. I look forward to council working with Lions Bay Community News and lionsbay.net to correct the record in terms of the erroneous information that's been published there. And the incorrect information has been brought forward by the Infrastructure Committee. And to that end, I look forward to an apology and retraction from the Infrastructure Committee, because I feel that they have the report that has been placed in those two venues is completely inappropriate, and to my mind, in Lions Bay, unacceptable. Any questions of anything that I have this evening? And
Do any councilors have any questions or
points
comments?
that some of the points that I've covered are covered in other points, other times during this meeting, and so I have not addressed them specifically just now.
Interim CEO McCrowley, do you have any comments, questions?
Sure.
I'm gonna,
Speaking as chair, sir?
yes, I'm speaking as chair and as a counselor, so.
Is that okay? Is that okay as chair and you can speak?
Yes.
Yeah.
At the regular council meeting of July 22nd, I was speaking as a counselor in my official capacity. I was asked a direct question from the village's senior administrator, and I answered truthfully and to the best of my knowledge. I was asked by interim CEO McGratty, are you calling Dr. Broughton a liar? My response was, if Dr. Broughton is claiming that the survey includes all the trees, topped, windowed, or cut down, then yes, I am calling him a liar. In your email titled Survey sent on July the 16th at 10:47 p.m. to Mrs. Public Cover and Mr. McGratty, page 123 of 150 in the council package, I quote, Mr. Broughton has advised that the survey includes all the trees that were cut or trimmed. By copying Mr. Broughton on this email response, I am requesting him once again to confirm this. You replied, I confirm that the survey includes all the trees that were cut or trimmed. It is my belief that council's expectation is that people will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. On July 24th, I sent the following email to Mr. Hickman of Chapman Land Surveying Limited, page 119 of 150 in the council agenda package. Dear Mr. Hickman, neighbors have inquired about the trees that were cut on Alview Place, Lions Bay. Your reputable company recently conducted a survey at this location at the request of Michael Broughton, which he provided to staff and council of the village. We would like to confirm that the survey of 225 Alview Place, Lot 30, Lot 5, District Lot 1575, Group 1, New Westminster, Plan 10236, PID 04-649-22, includes all the trees that were cut, topped, or windowed, or otherwise altered along Alview Place. Mr. Hickman replied on July 25th, page 121 of 150, which clearly states, read 225 Alview Place, Lions Bay, BC. In answer to your email of July 24th, the survey of certain trees at 225 Alview Place was of trees in the areas indicated on site by Mr. Brown. The trees were generally the ones closest to Alview Place where there was a concern if the trees were on private property or on road allowance. There is no representation by Chapman Land Surveying that the plan shows all the trees that were cut off the window. Council is disappointed. I'm not quite finished, but I got one more paragraph. So, council is disappointed that this matter has taken up so much village staff and council time. Will you follow through with your commitment to provide a land survey of all the trees that were cut close to or outside the property lines of 225 Isle and clearly identify label the Village of Lions Bay land, Crown lands adjacent to the private property, so that interim CAO can determine that the village property has not been damaged and the Village of Lions Bay tree bylaw has not been violated. Yes.
Okay, Mr. Ando, surveyors do surveys. Okay, and a survey, if I commission a survey, that generates a survey report. And the survey report is an indication of the purpose of the survey. They report out what was requested of them. I requested that all trees be surveyed, and that generated a survey report. And the survey report showed certain trees, which is a survey term apparently. Every tree that has been cut on the Poville property for whatever period of time is not shown on the survey plan. But all trees cut were considered in the survey. And all trees cut were determined to be on Poville property.
There were 2 trees that were on the eastern property line that Mr. McBride's report that said that were straddled.
Determined to be on the line, and were determined to be on Poville property.
Well, if you go and you take a look, this is where the IP is, or the iron post, and this side is the road allowance, which would be village property, and this side would be the private property. So
Mr. Ando,
can you tell
I
me?
commissioned a survey.
Pardon me?
I commissioned a survey, and the survey reported as
Survey reported that there were 2 trees that were that straddled the line. I believe, in my opinion, even that more than 75 or 80% of that tree is on the road allowance. But if you can clearly prove that they're all on the private property, then we don't have a problem. But you've made commitments to the Village of Lions Bay, which you made to Councilor McLaughlin, and Councilor McLaughlin's seen the trees. You made them to interim CEO McGradu, and the Village of Lions Bay expects you to meet that commitment so that we can make the determination of whose trees or whose property the trees that were cut were on. But this will be coming up later in the agenda, and I expect that we'll come to some kind of resolution at that time, I would think. So I think we'll move on. Unless anybody else, Mr. McGrady, do you have any comment?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Not at this time.
Great.
Okay,
Call Mayor Buckingham, please.
Thank you. I'm going to call upon Jerry Longson within the agenda. And actually, we can probably go, but let's just go right to Jerry Longson, and then we'll go back to item 5, adoption of minutes. So Jerry, if you could begin your presentation before council and just maybe join us at the other end of the table. Would that be fine? Okay, fantastic. Mr. Longson is the project manager for the Community Centre Renewal Project. So, welcome.
Mayor and Council, I'm here tonight to report on 3 things on the Community Centre and Village Hall rejuvenation project. Let me first talk a little bit about where we are and the status of the project as of the end of the month, which is just 2 days ago. I'm going to talk about where we are with the schedule, and then I'm talking a bit about. Firstly, as you know, the project's been broken into 2 parts. The first was the re-roofing and seismic upgrading. And we hired, the village hired DMC as general contractors. That work is now 100% complete. And all the deficiencies under their contract have been rectified. We're currently just waiting on some project manuals and some warranty documents, but they are complete. Substantial completion on that project was issued on July 14th, and as of August 26th, from my understanding from staff, that there were no liens filed against the project or the property, and that the lien rollback amount would be released to DMC on September 5th, which is the legal obligations of the PC Lien Act. DMC's original tender price and construction contract price was for $159,000. Since the start of the project, 11 extras and credit change orders have added about almost $18,000, which is about 11%, to DMC's construction contract price, which totaled out at $176,975 in total. The main reason for these changes were a number of unknown conditions in the existing buildings, such as rot in the northwest corner, rot in the northeast corner of the mansard roof, and the discovery of lead paint in the exterior of the building. Additional structural framing was required to achieve the upgraded seismic requirements that was part of their contract. The building code also required some fire protection and separation once the building was opened up, and that had to be added. And also we replaced the method of draining the roof from doing it with framing, which would have added exceptionally large amount of weight to the existing roof, and we went instead with a tapered insulation system to create the drainage. Now, DMC did a pretty admirable job, except for not keeping within the project contract completion date, which was supposed to be on June 15th. The 11 change orders and some wet weather condition contributed to the extension of the project construction schedule from the original 7 weeks to 11 weeks. But with my understanding, this was pretty reasonable on their part. The second part of the project, as you know, is the repairs and upgrading of the existing building itself. The construction of this project is by Kindred Construction as construction managers, and as of August 25th is 21% complete. The building permit has been issued by the Village of Lions Bay. That was issued on June 19th. The major components of the project that have been completed to date include the removal and remediation of all of the hazardous materials from the interior of the community center and the village hall. And this was mainly gypsum wall board, tape, and some vinyl asbestos tiles that were in the project. We've also demolished all the designated interior walls of the community center, mainly around the washrooms and the library upstairs. We removed the existing old oil-fired forced air furnaces. The biggest piece of this work that's been recently completed is the installation of the required anchor rods in the east concrete wall of the community center to make it seismically sound. With the anchor rods being installed, reinforcements been added, wire mesh has been added, and shotcrete now has been added to that concrete wall to make it seismically sound. There's been repairs and sealing to the cracks that were discovered in the east concrete wall, and I'm expecting a further report from the geotech on that work. 2 large fir trees were removed by the village and their roots ground up, and those trees needed to come down for a couple of reasons. First of all, they were hindering some of the concrete foundation walls that we were putting in, and also they were contributing to a lot of the problem with the drainage on the roof by needles and boughs actually damming the existing, the previous rainwater leader system and causing the rot that I mentioned earlier. We've excavated and formed new footings to support the 3 large interior glulam beams and the associated columns. On the south side of the building, the grade's been leveled and a 6-inch by 12-inch wood-treated curb has been added to create the start of the south patio. Gravel fill has been added to that patio as well. The oil tank has been relocated to its new location, pretty well where it was before, but it's now on a solid concrete pad. And the last thing is that the concrete floors in the washroom have been cut in advance of installing the new plumbing for the 3 new replanned washrooms. The consultant team that you've hired, including myself, Janssen Engineering and Geo-Pacific, continue to provide valuable and timely assistance to the construction in a number of ways. They do weekly site inspections and instructions. They review any suggestions by the construction team. As a construction manager, Kindred's doing a good job of analyzing things and finding ways that are economical to build the project. The consultant team has helped with the selection with the assistance of Lori on materials, colors, and the details of some of the new construction. And the consultant team's been processing all of the construction claims and miscellaneous consultant invoices as well. Now, Kindred's budget was established at $472,253, of which to date $99,457 has been spent directly by Kindred and their subtrades. Kindred continues to plan and work in an attempt to have the project completed by October 15th and to have it ready to move in. So that gives you a status currently of where this project's at. The schedule, which I just received from Kindred on Friday, shows how they are working diligently with the trades, and again, hope to have the project completed no later than October 15th, ready for the Village Hall move-in. Now, budget-wise, at least on the Kindred portion, there's been a number of additional scope changes, and these are things that were not in their original documents. And Kindred's done a good job of getting good competitive prices for these scope changes and finding ways to include some of the items in the actual project budget. But there are a number of scope changes that have the potential to add to the overall construction costs. And those include some additional millwork, planned interconnecting hallway, some additional insulation. We're switching the insulation system from bats to a spray insulation on the underside of the joists. There is new exterior lighting required. The old lighting was not suitable. So those are all things that I continue to bring to the village for approval before Kindred is allowed to proceed with construction on those. Now, overall, from the funding that's available from the 3 sources, Right now, we have $861,000 available monies in the budget for the repairs and re-roofing phase. Of that, $376,000 has been spent to date, and the balance of that, the $481,000, is committed through contracts to Kindred or the consultants that you've hired. So we're still within the amount that is funds that are available, and there still is a contingency built into that funds to cover some of these changes in the scope if they are approved. That's my report. Give you a snapshot of where we are with the project, and I'll take any questions that you have now.
Thank you, Jerry. From council, I'm going to just direct my question to council, if I may, and to staff, senior staff. Councillor McLaughlin?
Thank you, Mr. Longston. Is there anything that could throw the timetable off? I mean, it seems to me that the construction management team is pretty focused on what they're doing, and they're falling like dominoes. Is there, weather is now past us, we don't, do you?
The biggest amount of work that has sort of held back moving ahead has been that structural retaining wall on the east wall. It was a very messy component. We had to do quite a bit of demolition to put that in. That work's now completed. The next piece that's sort of holding things up a little bit is the new header in the window, the north side of the library. That work's underway. So with all of that completed, now we can start rebuilding.
Okay.
And that's what we've been waiting to do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions of council? Councillor Bain?
I'm curious, I've seen some trucks from a blasting company there. Were they just driving by or
You should come up and get a hard hat and walk onto the site, and you'll see how poorly that building was built, which is well documented. No disrespect to the volunteers and people involved back when it was first built, but it was built on top of a number of large rocks, which isn't standard practice. In fact, they just poured the concrete around the rocks. So we had to break up a couple of rocks to build these new foundations. Also, the company that does the rods is also a blasting company as well. Okay, so no dynamite or any blasting was actually done. They broke up the rocks with jackhammers and wedges.
Good. Other questions from council? Yes, I'm sorry, Councillor Ando?
I have a number of questions, so maybe others have theirs first, then I can go through all
I
of
just
them.
have one comment, and that, so I might have another comment later, but just that in looking at the Kindred's accounting of what's been reduced and what's gone up, it balances out at zero. So I did my math today, and so I was really pleased about that. So I just wanted to note that you've made that comment in your preceding note, and just generally, but when I went in and did the math, it was really solid. So just want to, through you, thank Kindred and thank you for your oversight. So Councillor Ando?
Just maybe I could
yeah.
add one thing. So one of the reasons why I recommended that we use a construction manager, because they can do that. They can make those balances and changes in the project or trades, or find easier ways to construct things. As they have to spend more money in one area, they have methods of taking it out of other parts of the project. And their mandate was to keep it within that budget, other than the scope changes.
So I was really pleased to see how literal that was. So, and I know I speak on behalf of council and the community in that, but in thanking you, through you, to the construction manager and the oversight, and to Kindred for being literal, because we very much appreciate that, but have expected that. Councillor Ando?
Thank you, Mayor Brown. I'll start from the beginning of your document and identify all the questions that I have as I was going through it. I was wondering if you could elaborate on the additional structural framing to achieve the upgraded seismic requirements. What was done?
In the first phase, which was where we were planning to do structural seismic upgrading from once we took the roof sheathing off, we found that there was a number of connections that did not exist, mainly around the east wall of the village hall, where the joists weren't really attached to the existing concrete, so that was upgraded. We knew that there was limited cross-blocking on the joists within the both the village hall and the community center, so that had to be upgraded as well. And I guess lastly would be the construction of the mansard roofs. We thought, the original drawing showed that there was some structure in there, some plywood sheathing. When we opened it up, there wasn't, so plywood sheathing had to be added in there. It's one of the reasons why we switched from aluminum softened material into plywood with vents, because we needed that plywood for structure. So those would be three examples of where additional structural upgrading was required.
Thank you. Now, what does it mean replacing roof? What does replacing the roof framing mean?
So the roof, the building, the structure of the building is flat. And we need to have a positive slope to the new drainage system that we've installed before the membrane is put on. We initially suggested that we do that by adding structure on top of the new plywood, or even before the plywood was on. Series of strapping and angled framing, and then the plywood would go on. The structural engineer, in analyzing the structure of the existing building, recognized that that would be adding weight to the building. Weight that the existing structure could not take if it was to continue to meet the code that it was originally built to. And that was his mandate. So instead of adding more structure, which would add weight, we went with a tapered insulation system to provide the slopes that we needed before the roof membrane was put on to the drains.
You mentioned a very salient point that I want to ensure that then the goal is that you are trying to build to the 1970 NBC. Is that correct?
That's what the structural engineers requirement, yeah. That's correct. We weren't mandated to upgrade the structure to the current BC building code.
The north wall is a firewall, the one that you're putting the header into.
Yes.
Is that wall supporting the roof?
Is that wall supporting the roof? No, it is not, because the structure runs parallel to that hollow concrete block wall, both for the village hall and for the community center.
So
parallel.
it's a firewall. Would that be correct to assume
Yes.
that? And then are you doing some kind of, because it's, there's no reinforcing, couldn't that wall, isn't that susceptible to an earthquake and falling, or is there?
The engineer has accepted that wall in its current condition for structure. And a hollow concrete block wall is adequate for the fire separation required over that length that is exposed.
Okay. How did you determine the 21% complete? Is it financial, or work completed, or duration of time?
It's basically financial. It's the amount of money that they've claimed of work completed to date and versus what their contract price is.
Thank you. Can you more adequately describe the process of how the soil anchors were put in? Was the shotcrete and the mesh put in first and then the soil anchors, or was the soil anchors drilled? Can you?
Okay, I'll walk you through what we did there. First of all of the wood structure, drywall, insulation, electrical, and mechanical ducts were removed from that concrete wall. The wall was then marked where the rods were going to go based on the geotechnical engineer's report. They then drilled holes with the rods themselves, and they're special rods, they're hollow, at an angle determined by the geotech engineer into the depth. Either they hit rock or the depth that the engineer requested. Grout was then pumped down through the center of the rod and back up into the hole, and that grout now has sealed those rods into the ground to the east. A plate was then put over the end of the rod, and the rods were then, after the grout had set, they were tested. They were tried to pull them out and with a certain machine that measures what the requirements were from the geotechnical
So they
engineer.
were tested.
They
So
were all tested.
Tested to 30 kips, and
Yeah.
then they were back to 5 kips.
Yeah, yeah. They weren't left in a tent-style mode. Then that was the grout. Then the steel plate was put on that held them in place to the concrete wall. Then this rebar, a horizontal and vertical rebar mesh, was then installed, and that was anchored by bolts that were put into the existing concrete to keep them spaced away from the wall and so that they didn't all slip down. They recognized that they were going to have trouble holding the shotcrete against those rods, so that a welded wire mesh was then put in front of those rods, so that there was a space between the concrete and the rods, and between the rods and the mesh, and then the concrete was added over top of them. Spray shotcrete concrete was added over top of them.
Thank you. Are the soil anchors going to be done to the village hall or the office portion of the building?
The structural engineer is not required that that wall be seismically restrained, because it's not supporting anything more than the roof, as compared to the wall on the community center, which is supporting the second story of the library. So he has not required that.
And so, back in June 2013, so before your time, unfortunately, in a COTW meeting, the Secretary Treasurer Zaba at that time reported that a recent inspection of the community center complex by WorkSafe BC, he referenced the original engineer's report, which states that the east wall had not been structurally engineered and had not been constructed as a retaining wall. He noted that WorkSafe BC have informed him that they will inspect the structural issue to be addressed going forward. So I believe, from my understanding, going back to June 2013, that there's a safety issue for our employees and village office staff, and that wall needs to be remediated because it's one continuous wall that's 100 feet. Do you not share that concern, or?
I guess two things. One is it is not one continuous wall, because that part of the building was added later. It wasn't all built at the same time. And number two is that the structural engineer has looked at the existing drawings and looked at the existing conditions, has determined that that wall is adequate for what it needs to do currently, and there was no need to add anchor rods in that location.
So my request would be is that somebody from the staff ensure that we don't have a WCB problem. If we finish it and we determine that we have to remediate that wall, that would be a problem for me. It's all open now and it's in a bare state. Now would be the time if we need to do that. So now would be the time to ensure that we don't have a requirement by WCB to address that issue.
Yeah, we can ask staff to look at that final report. That was, so curiously, certainly that was my understanding at the time, and then I recall reading the final report quite late on and saying that WCB didn't have an issue, but I'd rather that came from then I have had nothing to do with these ongoing discussions in terms of the engineer's reports, but just so that you know that I was quite surprised to review that report that came up in a later agenda package, and was because that was my understanding as well. So maybe we can ask staff to look at that. But that was my recollection, which may or may not be correct. But why it came to my interest was because it was contravailing to what I had thought. So, yes.
Thank you. So page 47 of 340 of the document that we released, which was a scope ladder, was in the community center, Division 3 concrete was the cost for the reinforcing the east wall, the structural detail HS 3.1. And it includes the following: reinforcing steel, rock anchors, and shotcrete shoring for $42,250. And then page 49 of 340, the village hall or the office portion, same for $29,962. In the progress claim detailed summary, I wasn't able to determine where the concrete and that remediation of that east wall was in their
156.
in their claim. Are you able, or can you tell me where it is, please?
Might it be 2156 underpinning? I don't know if that would be the correct language.
Yes, that would be.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
So, I thought that the underpinning was the rebuilding of the foundation walls on the west side of the building. You have existing foundations, underpinning that you were building new foundations for the west wall, and if you're doing any remediation to the south wall, then it would be there. Am I wrong there?
Well, some of it is, for that west wall, is the bulk excavation, haul, and disposal, that $26,500.
Yes.
That's the major piece of the work for that west wall.
Okay. So the east wall of 42,250 is in here. You're pretty sure we just.
Well, I know that it was in the scope of the work that was given to Kindred.
Okay.
From that scope of the work, they've hired a contractor to carry out that work, and they've completed it. So I haven't made a progress draw against that, but you can see that they have a contract price, and that's why the original budget, which they did without trades initially at $22,500, has since increased to $29,400.
So, are you able to confirm with Kindred to ensure that the underpinning is the remediation of the east wall?
If you want me to, I will.
That would be great. Can you get that information back to council, please? Okay.
To you, Madam Mayor, yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It may be that there might be another area knitted together with that, but that's very helpful. Anything else, Councillor Ando?
There's another line item here that picks up some of that as well, which is line item 3100, which is the concrete form. So that would include any of the work to build the forms for those new footings and that as well. So there's about 4 items there that are all linked to those 2 different pieces of work.
I just want to ensure that the 42,000 is included in this contract and that we don't get a surprise later for 42,000. So
if it's in the scope of the work,
yes,
and that Kindred has contracted to complete that scope of the work, then it's in this price.
Very good. That's the assurance that I want to hear. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And anything else?
The last is, you're relocating the oil tank. Are we putting an oil furnace back in?
Putting 2 oil furnaces
okay,
back in.
that's all I wanted to know.
But new,
yes,
modern,
thank you.
efficient, and will last last for another 30 years.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other council questions? None. Council, there's a couple of questions in the audience. I don't know if you want me to move forward. We normally would just stay with council questions, but I'll be guided by council, and then I'll move us forward. So,
If you top this at no more than, say, 4 minutes.
I'll have our timer. May I call upon our timer, Councillor Bain, to time? And if I can go to Mr. Stone, I did see your hand first, and I saw Ms. Nelson's and Mr. Abbott's. And if we can get whatever we can do in 4 minutes, is that fair enough? Mr. Stone?
Hello, Ms. Nelson. I'm Mr. Stone. I noticed you mentioned an interconnected hallway. A hallway. What do you mean by an interconnected hallway? What is it connected?
In the original, in the old council chambers, to get to the washroom meant going through the inside for the public, meant going through the inside of the village hall, the offices. By relocating the door between the council chambers and the offices and creating a hallway, we can get the public directly into that washroom. The work has not gone ahead. We're waiting for pricing on that and waiting for approval from the village as to whether to proceed with that particular piece of work.
Second question is, are you keeping tabs of the costs to the office, which you call the hall, the village office, separated from the community center, the gym? Are your costs separated?
The contract that Kindred has is for the work in all of the projects, and like things like the drywall, electrical, plumbing applies to both projects. They are not separated.
So you're not keeping separate costs per building?
We are not. We were instructed to do that. There is some separation, I think, on paper due to the funding from funding sources, but not for the actual construction.
So how are we going to keep track of what we spent on either side? You just have a total, right?
We asked the contractor to provide us that information, but it is not part of their contract to separate the projects.
So you won't be getting figures showing
Not
separate?
exactly, not dollar for dollar, but we know enough to be able to separate what is being spent to meet the funders' requirements on each of the two projects.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I believe I saw Ms. Nelson's and then Mr. Abbott's. But if you guys want to change, Mr. Abbott, thank you.
Jim, you get to go first. I'll try to be quick. Just state what I thought I heard, rather than answering the question that was when you first did your presentation, you spoke about additions and deletions that Kindred got it, balancing things out. I thought I heard you say you were spending contingency there. Mayor Broughton said she did some math and the additions and deletions were within the original budget. Can you confirm, have you spent the contingency? Do you forecast spending the contingency or not?
Two things then that I was saying. Number one is that as the subtrade prices and the actual costs come in, measured against what Kindred's budget was for a particular item, they then balance that off against work that hasn't yet to happen or work that has happened that came in less. That's the first thing. Second, so that doesn't touch contingency. Where the contingency comes in is where we've added or have the potential to add scope to the project. This insulation in the attic is a good example of that. So in that case, where do we pay that from? We can't, not yet. Maybe when we get to the end, we can take it out of the project. But right now, because the work has to proceed, Kindred needs to know that that money's available. The village has a contingency. It's built not in Kindred's budget, but in their budget. And that's where the money for changes in scope would come from.
Okay, I'll ask another way, just really quickly. In answer to Mr. McGuire's question, were you 21% complete? You actually said, no, we're 21% spent, correct? You said they've spent 21% of the budget.
In my mind and in the industry standards, that is how we would measure completion.
21% spent, you haven't necessarily earned 21% of the project.
They've invoiced for 21%. The work that has been reviewed by myself and by the consultants is equal to that 21%.
You verified that 21% work.
I verified on behalf of the village every progress claim that the contractor puts in, as well as so does the structural engineer and the geotech.
So this should finish on
We
that.
certify that.
This should finish on budget. One last question. You seem to be
yeah.
talk about seismic upgrading. Can I just be real quick? You seem to be talking
Real-
about seismic upgrading, and you stated we're on the 1970 code. And then when Andy was asking about the wall, you said it wasn't reinforced, so therefore it wasn't seismically upgraded. Is that correct? Or you don't know? It's okay.
I'm not the structural engineer or the geotech.
Okay, I guess then my question is, will this building meet this 1970 code? Is it going to meet the standards required for it to be a refuge building? Is it going to be seismically upgraded?
The requirements were not to make it a post-disaster building. It is not a post-disaster building, but it will withstand a earthquake at a certain level based on both today's codes and some of the codes structurally from when it was originally built. So we didn't want to make it worse than it was, at least wood framing wise. Concrete wise, though, it was identified that that east wall was not constructed very well. And on our inspections, it had no rebar in it. We corrected that.
So as a community, it should not be used as a refuge building. It's not a post-disaster building.
It's not a post-disaster building.
What that means, if I can just clarify this, and Mr. Longson can clarify my clarification as needed. But post-disaster is that the building is standing. We've been in the new Ottawa courthouse and there was an earthquake and we were evacuated, everybody was safe, but actually they closed the building because there was some harm done to the building. So that's where you're not, my understanding is that it's seismic strengthening, not post-disaster where you would just walk back into the building and resume. You might walk back into the building and resume all things, but that it would be seismically strengthened. That's my understanding. So looking at the last comment that was made, my understanding is that it can be used as an emergency center, but not with an expectation that post-disaster the building would be without need of repair. If that makes sense to everyone. Yeah. Mr. Longson?
Post-disaster, that term is a very specific term in the British Public Building Code.
Yeah.
It talks about the ability for the building to resist not only earthquakes, but fire, wind, all sorts of other conditions. It's very clearly spelled out. It is very difficult to build a post-disaster building as a renovation. Most post-disaster buildings are new construction on things like fire halls. The new RCMP station in Squamish, where the EOC is as well, is a post-disaster building. It was designed specifically that, especially since it has the EOC, that it could continue to operate if there was a major earthquake or a major fire or a major wind. This building was not designed in the first place and has not been upgraded to meet that requirement.
Thank you. If I can move us along, but to say that when, for example, when our own wonderful village school got seismically strengthened, it again wasn't that post-disaster because it's a very challenging standard to meet post-building. So I'm just going to move us along, if I may. I'm sorry, council had agreed to 4 minutes. We had the timer go off, and Mr. Abbott had asked if we could just continue with his second question on seismic, and I said yes to
I
that.
just have one question while the project manager's here, and it has to do with the interior design budget. It's a quick question. You're already talking about space planning and interior millwork changes. Do we have a budget number for the interior finishing of this building?
We have a budget for the interior finishing, which would be drywall, paint, wood trim, wood sills, doors, door hardware, etc. In a number of locations, we are changing or upgrading the millwork to match the level of finishes to the rest of the building. We're looking at the servery installed upstairs next to the library. We're making some repairs to the front reception counter. The staff servery in the village hall is being replaced. So those are the major, and the fireplace is being looked at to be, the finish on that to be upgraded as well, as part of the interior design of the scheme.
What's the budget?
I couldn't tell you currently what
And
the
the
budget
community
is.
center kitchen as well.
Yeah.
Like just,
The that is in the community
That-
center kitchen is in the budget.
Yeah.
These additional items
I
are
see.
part of the scope change. They have yet to be priced and approved by the village.
Will the space planning change the client request?
No, the space planning is looking at how to place the workstations in the open office area, where to place them. There's some reusing most of the existing furniture, some new furniture is in the budget. So that's the space plan. How do you where do the file cabinets go, where do the desks go, and therefore where do the light fixtures go, and wherefore do the electrical plugs and data plugs go. So that's the space plan.
That's been done, right?
I have yet to sit down with staff to kind of figure out where we want to put each of the individual desks, but we have a general idea of where the
And the
workstations
change
are.
with the new VOLB, that client, was that a client change?
That was a client request to investigate the possibility and to see whether the costs would fit within the contingency in the project budget, yes.
Okay, I'm going to move us along. Thank you very much to everybody for your participation, and to Mr. Longson. I'm sorry, Mr. McGratty?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I do want to, in public, thank Mr. Longson for his very diligent review of this project. This has been a very interesting project to proceed. We are renovating an older building, and one thing that I can say with confidence is that Mr. Longson has got his eyes and ears on this project, and he's holding the contractors to the fire, and I think we're very confident, and I think we're very lucky to have somebody of Mr. Longson's experience working with the village. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, and I know that it's been an iterative in the sense that it is an old building, and so as you find things like rot, you need to deal with that. Certainly not turn a blind eye at all. And so that's been an important piece of the project in terms of putting us in motion for the next 30 to 40 years. So I'd like to echo Mr. McGrady's thanks on behalf of council and for keeping everybody's feet to the fire on this, because I know that it's been a challenging project for sure. And on a positive note, I think that the community center is the heart of Lions Bay, and that the community will find that heart again and feel safe within it. So I'd say that on a very positive note. We hope that the October 15th date can be maintained, and that we'll have an opening and celebration of that and bringing people together. So thank you very much, Mr. Longson. If I may have council maybe move receipt of that verbal report. Thank you, Councillor Bain, and a seconder, please. Councillor Ronsley, thank you. And because it's receipt, I'll just call question on that. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you so much. If we can move then along to the land use master planning update, and I'll turn to, pardon me?
Minutes?
I'm sorry, we'll go backwards to the minutes. Thank you for keeping me on agenda. So I'd like to then go to the minutes of the meeting of July 22nd. Could I please have council move and second? Thank you, Councillor Bain, and a seconder, please. Councillor Ronsley, thank you. Any changes, additions, deletions to the minutes? I just have a couple. Ms. Lee, if you could turn to page 4 of 9, and where we have 7B, and we have 2 recommendations in the first line, if that could just be an S. And then under the first be it resolved, if we could just put draft in all capitals, draft land use master plan, as has been our process. And then in that light on page 5 of 9, under 8B, bullet 2, if we can also insert the word capitals draft before land use master plan. If there's nothing further, I will call question on the motion. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. If we can then move forward through business arising from the minutes, back to 7B, unfinished business land use master planning update. Just to say that we have changed the meeting location from this room to the Glen Eagles Golf Club, which is just about a 2-minute walk this way. You can still park here or park at the Glen Eagles Golf Club, but it's a bigger venue. So that should there be more people, it will be a venue that's big enough. And because the school is closed at this time, and we have no anticipation that it will be open, and where we previously have used a larger gymnasium, just to respect that whether it's a small group or whether it's a large group, people will feel welcomed, and it will be a proper size for such an important meeting. So we've made that change. So that is still at 7 p.m. Monday, September 8th. I think that that's all there. Anything that you might like to add, Mr. McGrath?
Madam Mayor, there will be additional notices placed around the village tomorrow.
Thank you very much. Really pleased about that. And if there's nothing further, I'm going to go on to the next item. And again, recuse myself as 7C, trees on Isleview Place. So if I may, just have everybody stop for a moment while I recuse myself. Thank you very much for the same reasons as stated earlier.
Madam Mayor, before you go,
yeah.
Just as a suggestion, I understand that as the former acting mayor was Councillor Bain, that he should be
the chair.
Chair.
If you'll accept that, I'm pleased to pass that along. So thank you very much.
Is that okay with council?
Yes.
Because,
Yeah.
the item.
He said, thank you very much. I'm just going to step out once again. Thank you.
Okay, item 7C, trees on Isleview, Council Andrew, I believe that was your addition to the agenda.
That's correct. Thank you, Councillor Bain, acting mayor. In my humble opinion, I believe that this matter has not been resolved. That I believe that there are 2 trees that are on the street side or the eastern side of 225 Isleview Place that may be on village property. In emails from Michael Broughton, he claims that the purpose of the survey was to determine whether or not the trees were on private property or on road allowance or easement. And I believe that the survey shows that the trees are on the road allowance. So I believe that we need to look at this matter further to see whether any municipal property has been damaged and whether our tree bylaw needs to be adhered to.
Could I provide some information I think is very important to the meeting?
I think we have to stay at the table at this time, if you could bear with us. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have some significant information that I think is very germane to this discussion, and I think this is misleading as a result.
Are we open?
Scott get to the point to where he's going and then let the counter and then, okay.
Well,
Well,
so,
where are you going with this?
well, I believe that we need to identify whose lands are adjacent to the private property. Once we identify that, if there is village land adjacent to the private property, and if there are trees that are on that identified land, village property, and if they have been cut, then the village needs to do its due diligence and determine if our property was damaged, and then follow our tree bylaw.
Councillor McLaughlin, who are you suggesting does this?
Well, actually, it probably should be the bylaw officer now that we have one, but barring that, then maybe Mr. McRiley should have a revisit on this, ask, because Michael Broughton has made a commitment to provide a survey of all the trees and to identify the properties that are surrounding the adjacent properties around the private property so that we can determine whether or not it was on village property or not. Yes.
Mr. Broughton has some timely information that's new, and I would like very much to hear what that is, so if it might factor into our discussion here.
So Scott, is that, Councillor Andrews, is that the gist of the request here?
That is the gist of the
So I
request.
think to go to Mr. Broughton would be fair.
Sure. Mr. Brown, if we could.
I'm having some concern about the fact that Councillor Ando believes that the trees are somewhere other than where they are. My understanding is that there was some kind of a plan brought to the last meeting, the July 22nd meeting, and I have no idea where this plan came from, who drafted it, on what basis that occurred. We've just determined that all trees were surveyed. That I requested that all trees be surveyed. They were surveyed, and as a result of that, a survey plan was created which indicated what the certain trees were involved. Okay. I think what Councillor Ando has now come up with a picture with a ribbon hanging off of a tree and an iron pin, and I'm quite interested to know on what basis he believes that the iron pin is on the property line, because the iron pins are now not necessarily on property lines, and in fact no question has been made of the survey firm, and in fact the iron pin is not on the property line. Iron pins, some of the tags that are on the trees are reference points, and it's critical to take the plan, identify the iron pin, identify what reference point that is, etc. How Councillor Ando is sitting at the table here and creating these inferences that somehow these trees are not where they are is quite frankly quite astounding.
There's no
Excuse me.
No, there's no survey, Michael.
Excuse me.
Just a moment.
A
Call this
survey
to order.
occurred. A survey was done.
Where?
A survey was commissioned
Where is it?
with a reputable firm and who does tree surveys on a regular basis,
Where is it?
and determined that the trees were on the Colville property. All the trees cut were
Don't say that.
were surveyed.
Don't say it. Seriously.
So all trees were surveyed. So I'm sorry, but if we're seeing a picture with a you're now into the realm of survey, and the survey has been commissioned, the survey has been provided to the village of Lions Bay. So we have a common sense issue here, which seems to have transpired into some kind of mean-spirited wordplay. I mean, first of all, we're talking about whether all the trees were considered, and we've determined that that's the case. Now we're talking about where pins are, and the surveyors determine that. And the surveyor has determined that. And
Shall I read the
matter is
letter from
closed.
the surveyor, what the surveyor
No, just a
said?
minute, let's come back to order here. Do you have a rebuttal to his comment, or?
So, the end of last week, I asked interim CAO McGrather to bring the survey so that we could see the survey and the rest of the council could see where the 2 trees are on the survey. So, my understanding from, well, that's number one. Did you bring the survey?
No, I didn't see that email. When did you send it?
When did I send it? I sent it at 7:24 on Wednesday or Thursday of last week. At the very bottom of the email, it said, please bring the survey to the meeting.
Sorry, what day was it?
Maybe we have a problem. I think it's Thursday.
Was that the one before or after you sent it to me personally?
I didn't send you an apology. But yeah, that same email. At the bottom of that, it says, please bring the survey.
I have a couple of questions while interim CAO is looking. 2 questions. Is the map that you presented to us, that is what the surveyor produced, or is that somebody's hand drawing?
Through you, I'll just read part of the email.
sorry.
I believe that is indeterminate from the survey whose lands that the 2 trees were on. Council needs to ensure that none of the trees were on village lands.
It doesn't ask you to bring the survey?
On a point of order from the floor, Mr. Chair,
Yep.
this matter can surely be solved if the survey is brought for public scrutiny by all parties who are interested or concerned. That survey should be made public. And can I see it?
Oh, you're talking about a
in the village
different...
office? Can I see it in the village office? Can anybody in this audience come to see it?
That I don't know. That's what I'm trying to establish, is the drawing that we've got what the surveyor produced, or is it somebody's hand-drawn reference to it?
The hand-drawn or hand-sketched reference that I did was based on looking at the survey, and I drew what was there. And that's why I asked Mr. McGrather to bring the survey so that there would be no discrepancies as to what the drawing says. So, that's what I had specifically asked. I don't have the exact email. I didn't print it I didn't think that I would need that tonight.
So, interim CAO McGrather, is it possible for a viewing of the original?
At this moment, no.
No, not at this moment,
Sure,
but in the
of
future.
course. Councillor Ando did have a copy, or did have access to it, but it's available to the public, yes.
Do you know exactly whose property abuts that border? Is it municipal, or is it Highways Department property?
Mr. Mayor, which property?
The one with the trees in question.
That I don't know the answer to.
So could we then leave this for now and then have an assessment of it and a viewing of it to make it accessible to whomever needs to see it?
Okay.
Is that?
Mr. Mayor, just so that we're very clear, what do you want to have brought forward?
Just as a viewing of the actual, not the rendition by hand, so that we can see exactly where the trees are, so that there's no doubt. There's a difference of opinion here, and it needs to be resolved, I think, one way or the other.
So you want the actual survey?
Yeah, is
to be
that
sent out to all
possible?
council. We can send that out, first thing tomorrow morning.
Okay.
I believe we can, anyways. Survey, okay, to be sent to council.
And can we establish whose property is on the east side there with the trees in question? Whose property abuts the Poville property on that border?
I believe we can. I don't know. I'd have to check on that.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
So who's...
I believe it is the east side, isn't it?
That's the east side?
Right.
Okay, we can check that out.
there's a south side trees that have been cut on, so, excuse me, sir. There are trees on the south side, on the creek side, that go well beyond the last marker put in the tree by the survey company.
Right.
And if I could, may I just read the letter from Mr. Hickman?
We all have copies of it.
Okay.
That's fine, thank you.
Okay.
Can we leave it at that for now, or is there something else?
Mr. Mayor, what we can do, what you would ask is that the survey, if I can, I believe we can, this is the property now, to be emailed to each council member. And then we'll attempt to find out whose property abuts the east side of the Colville's property.
Correct.
Okay.
And the south side.
Well, the contentious part is the east side, I believe, at this point, or is
That's the contentious side with regards to the village, because the village, as Mr. McBrado has said, that we're only, not only, but we are concerned if the trees, if municipal trees have been cut without permission. But there are other trees that are not on private property, in my opinion, other trees that are not on private property that have been cut. I would ask Councillor McLaughlin, who went there after Mr. and Mrs. Publicover came to the meeting to discuss it. Did you see any trees that were outside the?
No, I saw the desecration of the property. I mean, it was really not very pretty, but as to where anything was, that was really what alarmed me the most of the public health presentation.
Okay.
So, and then Councillor Ronsley also went to see that.
Yes, I went unannounced with an apology to the owners to find out what that was right after. I think it was a Sunday morning or Saturday morning. It was on the weekend, whatever. But I have a question. So I did spend a good deal of time, and we did have a good discussion. But I didn't have in my possession the survey or the markings or who the trees belong to. One moment. And I also wonder where the boundaries are as far as the highway is concerned, because they have given the village, as I understand it, domain to control. That doesn't mean that it comes under, is also my understanding, it comes under village bylaws, but it does indeed clarify that some of it is not village property. And I'm not saying which is and which is not, but I do believe it's time to ask the MOT and to ask if they have a survey of what their land is that would give us clarity in terms of the issues that we're debating and trying to get to the right resolution here.
Absolutely, I think that's a wonderful idea.
Well, I think it would, thank you. I think it would take just a request to the government agents to ask if they have a survey, and if indeed they would give us a copy so we can see what is theirs, what is ours, and ultimately move forward and onward. I've seen a lot of positive response. That's kind of neat after all the responses I've had on it by email.
It's been 5 months of wasted.
I know. However, we're, just to clarify, this council is determined to do things right, without exception. Yes, Mr. Stone, that's correct. This council is dedicated and committed to that, and we are not giving up until our tenure is finished. And some of us may even be on the next council, maybe none of us will. Okay, we don't know. But between now and then, it's time to resolve and move forward. Council and the public, and certainly the people the kind people who had this done next door to them, have spent endless time and energy on this. Ultimately, perhaps, I would hope, that the tree bylaw is reviewed. We are not immediately, because we have more on our plate than any office, talented as they are and committed as they are. Any council can handle more right now, but they are up for review next year, and I suggest that the tree bylaw be reviewed and by the office staff, so it's a nonpartisan, and that recommendations, if there are any, to come forward. The tree bylaw has been in place since for three mayors. I believe it started in 2002. I know it very well. I happen to live with a guy who had a lot to do with it. I'm not voicing an opinion here. I'm saying it's time to look at it further, okay? So that's the end of my little talk.
Okay. So, first, if I can make a comment, is it possible for staff to contact MOT to find out if they have a survey done of their property abutting on the south side, I believe it is?
Mr. Mayor, we can certainly ask that question again.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Ando.
So, Councillor McLaughlin saw the devastation, and at the time, we didn't know where Mr. Povill's property ended. And so, one of the issues here is the claim by Michael Broughton that all the trees are on the survey, or at least all the pertinent trees. And that's a point that I beg to differ. So just to refresh everybody's memory, or to clarify, now that we know where the private property is, one for interim CO, rather, you can see that there are trees that are outside that triangle, that 40-degree triangle of the property line that are outside. So when it's claimed that all the trees are, so I can't make you go there and take a look, but I can certainly bring the trees, or the image of the trees.
Councillor Endo, I beg to stand aside from your comment that the minutes or the recording says that Mr. Broughton, and I'm not defending anybody here, Mr. Broughton says all the trees. Are we going to hold him or anybody else for a point of language when ultimately we don't really know what we're dealing with at this point? So I would say, in fact, to accuse somebody of to accuse somebody of one not doing what he understood he was doing, and furthermore to accuse to come out with the term liar, I find that strong, insensitive, and I also find that what comes out in conversation or in passion necessarily isn't what's intended. So that's the way the language works, and so I don't want to hang anybody because of a word. All. Is it all? No. Is it almost all? I don't know. But let's move forward. Do you know how much time and energy and upset and we have, and I'm not saying we got elected on that basis, and we will carry forward with that. But at this point, let's go forward and see what the resolution is. So hang on there, and let's wait. And I thank everybody around this council table, and the players who have taken a huge interest. Some of them are sitting in this gallery here. That's what a community like Lions Bay is. However, to keep going after and after and after, let's decide that in the future. So I say, may we please put this to rest until we have more information and bring it forward. I would appreciate that very much as your colleague.
Do we have a date when that will happen?
No. So, just to summarize then, we're going to wait on possibility of 2 surveys, and we can go no further until then.
Mr. Mayor, we will send out, staff will send out a copy electronically of the survey to all council members tomorrow. We'll attempt to establish whose property exists on the east side of the Poville property. and we will contact MOTH to ask if they have a survey of the area and will they share it with the village.
Great. Well, just for my clarity as well, it is my understanding that MOT has no interest in the trees on their property. Is that correct?
Through to you, Mr. Mayor, in my initial discussions with representative of the MOT, that's what they told me.
Good.
That's based on, that's only based on the 2 trees supposedly along the road, not the ones on the south side.
Okay.
That's really an important distinction on the stream side.
Thank you. Councilor McLaughlin.
Perhaps acting Mayor Payne, we can conclude this portion of the agenda by the following comment that you've asked and the interim CAO has answered. The information will be provided at his ability. He'll provide the information. Council is in a standstill on this topic, period. By that I mean standing still, not contacting MOTH, not doing anything else, standing still.
Agreed. We'll wait for staff. Good. So let us move on.
Thank you.
And somebody could get Mayor Broughton back in. That would be great.
Nikki.
Where's the road?
It's here. It's behind.
Okay.
The person taking it.
Define standing still.
Weeks left.
Okay, if we can continue with the agenda under reports, I'd like to welcome Ms. Hoagland to come forward with the Manager of Public Works report. Thank you so much, Nikki.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for preparing such a detailed report for us.
No problem. Through your worship, just before I take any questions that may arise from my report, I just wanted to note that I inadvertently left off the smell remediation for Kelvin Grove. It is definitely a capital project. There's $10,000 associated with it.
The smell remediation?
Correct,
Thank
for
you.
Kelvin Grove.
Yeah.
At the moment, I'm investigating options for that. I will do my best to yell.
Do you want to move forward?
So can I just ask the question quickly? We went through unfinished business. If I look at the minutes, there was unfinished business in relation to non-public participation last week. Why did it not mention unfinished business?
I'm sorry, I need to bring us to order. We're in the middle of, so with all due respect, and respecting the gallery and the gallery respecting council, I'm going to move forward at this time. So with Ms. Hoagland's Public Works report. So Ms. Hoagland, thank you very much again. So yes, if you could raise your voice, but if
Sure.
Yeah, thank you
So,
very much.
With the exception of that inadvertent omission, I'm here to answer any questions that you may have with regard to my report.
Okay, could I just open it up, Councillor McLaughlin?
Thank you, Nikki, for another wonderful report. Pardon?
If I can just ask
Oh.
council to speak up, it's very hard in this room
Oh.
to hear. I'm very aware
Could
of
I
that
suggest
myself.
everybody move up? We've got some empty seats, and move your chairs up too.
Perhaps Nikki could turn around
Uh,
and waste in this spot.
If
Oh, it's
I
fine.
can just call us to order, Councillor Bronte, I'm just going to call us to order and ask everybody to speak louder and just maintain the orderliness. Thank you. Councillor McLaughlin?
Thank you, Mayor
I'm going to
Broughton.
ask you to
Speak
project your
loud.
voice.
I can
Okay.
speak louder,
Thank you.
that's not a problem. For item on the Upper Ocean View culvert, so I think where we left this was the budget was 40,000. The impression I had was it would be execution, and your thinking is you're going to get an engineering study?
No, what I've indicated in my report is I have not had a chance to
Oh.
further delve into
Okay, so.
the report from the July 22nd report.
Thanks very
So I was
much.
just merely letting
Okay.
you know that I have not had a chance to
Thank
get
you.
to that.
We're good.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Bain?
Don't take this wrong, but
Nope.
this is probably the easiest read in our agenda.
It's been
Just reading through the whole thing, I feel like I know exactly where we are now. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Really
I was
appreciate
hoping
it.
to make it accessible.
I would concur and just go on to just say it's really exciting to see that SCADA is going to be worked on over the next couple of months. It's something that is a project, again, that I'm sure council joins me in saying we're very pleased that that's moving ahead. It will create real effectiveness for our operations, and it's been long awaited, so really, really exciting to see that on there. I have a question, not about SCADA, but if you want to, I'll stop. If you want to make any comment about SCADA, no, just very, very positive. My question is regarding Phase 4 and Phase 5 and the highway tank pump maintenance, which I was thrilled to see on there. And just that because Phase 4 and Phase 5 tanks are so important to integrating the Harvey Creek and the Magnesia. So just wondering, it's been something that we've long worked on, the previous council, this council, but just making sure that the tanks are, so you might not be aware. When I saw this, I thought this is an opportunity. So when, to just make sure, are the tanks fully interconnected now? That is fully operated. The tanks are like the umbilical cord.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Between, so we have the Magnesia.
The intake at Magnesia, correct,
and the
at
Harvey Creek.
And
That's
they
right.
both have reservoirs, which are you calling those the tanks?
They're tanks, and then
Correct.
Phase 4 and Phase 5
Are pump stations.
Are pump stations.
And they have tanks associated with them,
That's
correct?
correct. Yeah, and just to make sure that that is integrated, that is the Magnesian Harvey Creek intakes are twins, and essentially they're twins. So and the reason for twinning them and putting them operational is so that if one was down, then the other could take over. And Phase 4 and Phase 5 are integral to that process. So when I saw the maintenance there, I was pleased that that's something that we've got an eye on.
Yes, so insofar as maintenance is concerned, yes, we definitely have an eye on it. Insofar as being able to shift completely the village, every residence within the village to either of those, as a point of clarification, we cannot. So we currently shift a number of residences from one to the other depending on a number of things, but there is no physical way to have every single residence be on
one or
both.
the other, yeah.
Just as a point of
Understood,
clarification.
yeah. But we've got that flexibility over.
Correct. So you will have noticed, for example, when e-posts were sent out, if we had the ability to shift residences on specific streets from hydrant to hydrant, we were doing that to mitigate effects on whichever of the intakes was being adversely affected the most. If that answers your question.
It does. And let me just look at just one thing in the planned works for September that you likely have. It might be so minor it's not on here, but just that the logs and raft get removed. Normally it's a joint partnership with the marina, I think.
Correct. We will look into that and make sure that that gets done.
So excellent report, thank you. Any other comments from council? Mr. McGrattan? I'm sorry. Councillor Ross?
Madam Mayor,
Mr.
it's really to do with the Harvey Road safety upgrades.
Yes.
You'll notice in later on in the agenda, and I just want to bring this up now, is that there is a resolution that we apply when appropriate for building candidate grants. The concern that Nikki and I have is that because we don't know when that is going to come, and because it's an issue that we would like to deal with this year, one of the things that we will be asking for, and I've spoken with you, is that at the September 16th meeting, we'd like to bring a resolution forward that we may move forward with that immediately, because that's something we'd like to do, and we may not have the opportunity, or nor do we want to take the time to wait for Build Canada, even though it is, shared funding. It's a project we want to move forward with now.
I agree, and subsequent to a meeting that we had earlier, and then I'll go to Councillor McLaughlin and then Councillor Ronsley, that Ms. Hogland and I believe Ms. Kuntz and I did contact our MLA and MP Member of Parliament about when the application process was going to be enlivened in BC. Today I emailed Minister Dennis LaBelle, the federal minister who's in charge of this project, to also ask when BC was going to activate its application process. So with that in mind, the resolution that's a little bit later in your package, just let's say they activated it tomorrow, it gives us the ability, we're all up and running and able to put that forward. On the other hand, the Harvey Creek intake road is so important to us from all perspectives, but certainly a safety perspective, that we will ensure that it gets activated as it's already active in the budget as a move forward. So that won't delay anything, but hopefully if the application process goes ahead, it would optimize things for us.
Madam Mayor, one other thing that I wanted just to state, I think the question was really posed, I think earlier in today's agenda, is what have we done to ensure that we have good staff here? And I think Nikki is we're, one of the things I said to council and said to the community when we hired Nikki and when we checked her references is that you would never feel uncomfortable about her work, and you would never have to second guess her budgets. I can tell you, in the short period of time that she's been here, she's been right on top of almost every project. I can't believe you've only been here for 2 months. 2 months, because she's got a good grasp of the organization. She's developing a good team with her staff. She's developing good, short-term and long-term plans for this community. And I think if anything, what are we doing to bring good staff in? Is we do our homework, we check references very well, and we ensure that people have a good knowledge for this community. And Nikki, I want to thank you.
Certainly, and I'll join Mr. McGrady in thanking you as well. If I can go to Councillor Ron.
No, I'm passing, thank you.
Okay, so what I'd like to say,
Except to say thank you very much.
You're welcome. And to piggyback on what Mr. McGrady has said, I am also, in addition to all of this, noting, very impressed with you noting the work you're doing in terms of meeting with your team and then progressing the fall plan and the longer term plan and working in that team model. It's just really exciting, and also join with Mr. McGrady in saying it's 2 short months and yet so much has been accomplished in the clarity. So thank you so much, and I'll just ask council as well to move receipt of your report, and actually to move receipt generally of reports. So if I can ask council, and then so if you can stay where you are just for a moment, Councillor Ando and Councillor Ronsley, thank you, and call question on the motion for receipt. All those in favor of reports, thank you so much, and thank you, Ms. Hogland, and you're welcome to stay, you're welcome to leave. You have an early morning.
I should stay for my resolution.
Oh, yes, you do. Need to stay
That's
for
kind
the
of important.
It is. Thank you very
You'll
much.
see me back again.
Okay, good. So if we can then go on to... Sure, let's deal with the resolution right now with council's permission.
Sure, let's do that.
Is that great? Please join us again. So this is the 9A, and in your package it's page 55. And the resolution reads as follows: whereas the Village of Lions Bay believes safety to staff and residents to be paramount and supports the undertaking of safety improvements to the Harvey Creek and Magnesia Creek water intakes. And whereas the Village of Lions Bay Council has approved funding in the 2014 capital budget in support of water intake safety improvements for both Harvey and Magnesia Creeks. And whereas the New Build Canada grant program may be available as a source of funding for this project, therefore be it resolved that Village of Lions Bay Council authorizes staff to proceed with compiling and submitting an application to Build Canada when the application period has commenced, if such commencement date is feasible with a 2014 construction completion schedule, and that staff be authorized to proceed with the project tendering process should the Build Canada grant application commencement date not be feasible to meet a 2014 construction completion schedule. Could I have somebody please move and second?
So
Councillor
moved.
Ronsley, and a seconder, Councillor Bain. Any discussion? Yes, Councillor Bain.
One question I have is if the Build Canada funding doesn't appear to be coming in a big hurry and the village gets started on it, would the Build Canada funding fund an already started project?
No, through your worship, it is my understanding that it would not do that. It has to be shovel-ready but not yet started in order to be eligible for funding. I may be incorrect if...
Through you, Madam Mayor, those have been the rules in the past. We're assuming they'll be the same.
Okay.
Councillor McLaughlin.
Thank you, Mayor Burton. I give the executive and Nikki full kudos for bringing this to council again. This was part of the budgeting process early on in the year, and it was a bit of a crapshoot whether Build Canada be ready or not, but the safety of our employees who've been under duress for some time is certainly more important. The budget was given. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, I believe staff has put this forward in an abundance of caution because it's a big number.
I'm sorry, Councillor Ando.
If the Build Canada doesn't come in time, then my understanding is that the project or the road remediation above Ocean View Gate needs to be done before anything can be done in Harvey Creek because you can't get the heavy machinery out there. So if we're able to separate it and do that work first, don't know how long that would take, but you might be able to gain a little bit more time because that work has to be done before the other project starts. That would be
So through your worship,
Yes, Ms. Hoffman.
the premise of the resolution was just to ensure that should funding become available, we packaged it all together so that we could put it through as one big package to them, so we didn't have to try to get a number of smaller packages through. You are correct. If we don't get the funding, then obviously we're going to do things in a controlled manner that would make the most of A, the available time, and B, what makes most sense to be able to get the entire project done from the point of the gate all the way up to the intake.
Thank you. Councillor Ronsley.
Yes, I want to thank you, Nikki, and thank you, Grant, for all the effort and that's gone into this. All of us around this table have walked that treacherous road up there on the creek, and I think we all agree that there's no choice. We've got the safety and well-being of this village first and foremost. So congratulations to Brenda Broughton once again for following up on this grant and getting the last word. A little shake-up always helps a little bit, Mayor Broughton. And we live in hope, of course, not Hope BC, but hope here, that we're going to get that. But there's no choice, for the safety of those who are going there, or the safety of our village.
I believe we also, as of last week, have requested, but if this could be noted, if it wasn't done prior to the end of the week, but requested a meeting with Minister Todd Stone, who's in charge of infrastructure. I see a head nodding. Yeah.
Our request has gone out.
That's great. Our request has gone out, and we have passed that along to our MLA's office, who will support that request, I believe. Additionally, what Ms. Hoagland has said is absolutely concrete and correct, that it needs to be shovel-ready but not started yet. I can think of one instance in the last 6 years where we have had to apologize but we haven't started the project, but without the application process. So it may be that we could work with them only with their consent, but I'm not holding out any hope for that. I'm just saying that as you were talking, you were absolutely saying what needed to be said and is the case 100% of the time. And this was something that Councillor Ronsley and I had inherited in the last council, and so we needed to do some work. We got that work done that hadn't yet been done. I'm not saying that that could happen again. So I really appreciate you being so clear, because that's the clarity I have as well. So thank you very much. So we've got a mover and seconder. If I can call question on the motion, all those in favor? Carried unanimously. And with that, I just want to remind council that Ms. Hoagland will bring this forward at the time when she feels that it must proceed, and that might be very early. So I just want to help council be directed on that. So thank you very much for your time this evening. And I know you have an early morning, so again, you're welcome to stay, but you're most welcome to excuse yourself. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks again.
If I can go on to the other reports, and just beginning with the mayor's report, and just briefly, we've been in recess. Essentially, there's been a few things that have come up. I've had the opportunity to meet with the Honourable Lisa Raitt, Minister of Transport from the federal government on July 23rd regarding Howe Sound, and she certainly recognized that she did not know Howe Sound well, and she is a former Port Authority head for the Toronto Port Authority, and understood the challenges there. The other issue that came up during this time, as many of council know, was parking, and I really want to thank our new bylaw officer for the work that's been done on really advancing our bylaw enforcement as it was becoming a growing issue on the part of residents. So I'll stop there and move along to reports that are in the package. And so Councillor Ronsley, and then I'll go in alphabetical order after that. So Councillor Ronsley.
I think I'm happy to answer any questions, but I would like to call your attention to this, and it's in my report at the end, this place of hope and recovery that's been established for women who are in North Vancouver. We do work with that organization. It's been long in coming, and these women, the idea is it's better to be at home than shipped across the bridge and get them recovered. Now it's only for 9, you guys. They're working on one for the men too, but it's very exciting when you realize these are lives that are going to be saved and can be turned around. I've included that in my report at the end. It's a well-documented and well-written article that came forward in the North Shore News on August 24th, and it excites me that these are lives that are going to be, that already are turned around, and now we're going to make sure that they go forward and become part of society. There is a wait list. They do have to qualify on many levels, and also there is a commitment, a financial commitment by those who are admitted to the program as far as getting in and also carrying on after that. So it excites me, and I think I like to think that we're doing something positive to create good lives, rather than just punishing those who cannot help themselves.
Very good. Thank you very much, Councillor Ronsley. If I can go in alphabetical order now, Councillor Ando. Okay. Councillor Bain. Okay, thank you very much. Councillor McLaughlin. Okay. Thank you. If we can then move along. Oh, yes. to committees and to the Finance Committee. Councillor McLaughlin.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. On table tonight is the third quarter financial article. The village executive and administration, along with the council members, received electronic copies earlier this evening. The article has been vetted by the interim CAO as the overall content, and the accountant as the accuracy of the numerical data. The content's also been confirmed by Mayor and all 4 independent members of the Finance Committee. Their suggested amendments have been aggregated into the final document. The Finance Committee is comprised of accredited members of our community with significant financial acumen who provide their independent views as the village's proxy with respect to its financial position, operations, management, and reporting of these items in a transparent and timely fashion. As the chairman of the Finance Committee, I'm pleased to provide this report for council's consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments that anybody has? Just the one clarification, it says a third quarter report, but it covers the first 2 quarters, so there's no confusion in reviewing it as the...
It's actually the third quarter in terms of a lot of the verbatim comment,
Oh,
but
okay.
per one of the suggestions of the member, I've shown that the financial data is at the second quarter. I know that the accountant will have third quarter information out at the end of the month.
Fantastic. I want to thank on all our behalves Councillor McLaughlin for his steadfast effort in just moving this along. This has been something that's long been invited and on a regular basis, and really working with staff and coordinating that and being pursuant. So I really just reviewed the report and really must thank you very much and ask staff, senior staff who assisted with this in our accounting department and all our senior staff to thank them very much. And if you can pass that along. In addition, I did send out an email today with these thanks to our council, of course, for supporting that, and to our Finance Committee for their review. So if you could pass those along, but certainly accept on our behalf a big thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. Certainly the staff had a significant part of this, as did the independent members. I recognize council's not, the balance of council not had really sufficient time to look at it, so if they can provide their thoughts in the next day or so, that'd be great.
Okay. Thank you so much. Okay, if we can move along then to the emergency reports. Any questions or comments regarding the RCMP report? Remembering the RCMP report is for July, and so doesn't cover the August period where we did have some activity as well. And then the Lions Bay Fire Rescue report, and you see all the work that they're doing, not only on the highway, but really within the community with their medical assistance. So really appreciate that. If I can move us along then to not 9A, we've already discussed that, but to 10A, bylaws on page 57. And if I can have council please move final reading, move adoption, pardon me, I'll use that term, for the animal control and licensing bylaw.
Might I suggest the dog owner put it forward?
Right. Okay, thank you, Councillor Bain. And a seconder, please. Councillor McLaughlin, thank you. And with this, no discussion, call question on the motion. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. If we can move along then to 10B, bylaw number 46. I'm sorry. Yes, Councillor Ando?
I just have 2 points with regards to the bylaw because I wasn't able to speak to it prior to adoption.
Yeah.
If someone could check on 6.63.
You have a page number?
This would be page 6 of the bylaw.
Page 6 of the bylaw, and it's 6.63.
663.
Oh, here it is. 6.3.
I'm staying corrected, but it may be section 6.6 instead of 6.5.
Oh, section 6.5 does not apply if the dog is under.
I'm sorry.
Or
Three
of an
member-
animal
what's the
shall
first- sorry.
remove any form of.
6.6.
Oh, yeah,
I
it
think-
probably is 6.6. It's 6.6.3, it refers to section 6.5. When you go back to section 6.5,
It doesn't.
it just needs to be clarified whether, whether that's internally consistent, whether that's what it's intending to refer to.
Okay.
And then 6.72, I'm sorry this is coming so late, but I had a thought that.
Oh, I think that it is compliant, just in reviewing it,
It
but
is?
well,
Okay.
well, yeah, but I'm
not
speed
sure.
reading it, so I'm gonna say to Mr. McRadu if he can, yeah, it looks compliant because it's an oddity. Anyway, I'm gonna go back to you,
And then
Councillor.
6.7.2. This bylaw doesn't take into consideration if new trails are built with a new name, what do we do? So I was wondering about that, so it doesn't need to be done now, but I was
Sure,
just,
but just a
it's
note
something that
maybe.
came up, so somebody may not think of it the next time that they rewrite this bylaw, so I just put that on the table. I realized that it doesn't deal with that.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
If I can then move us along to 10B, to move bylaw number 465, repeal of prior fees and charges, and to move adoption. Could I have, this is sort of an outlier of several months. It was identified that final adoption had never been passed of the repeal. So if I can have the council please move. Thank you, Councillor Bain. And second, Councillor Ronsley. And call question on the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. If we can then move along to correspondence. And if you'll note, just under number 4 there, I was going to send it off today, and I just thought I'd check with council to just pass along mayor and council's wishes to the family of the mayor of the village of Sabellas, who did pass away. And so I just thought I'd confirm with council that I'd pass along those well wishes. Good. And just for council's information, the Burnco aggregate project has had some changes, and I thought that when I reviewed it initially that it was a reduction, but in the look to the table, so there's language that refers to a reduction, but when I looked at the table, it's all an increase, every single one of them. So I just want to highlight that for you, that the language is very, to use this word, obfuscating. And I don't know that it's on purpose. It may be that they really didn't, they read the table backwards, but the table absolutely is clear the way that it's cast there. So just for your information. And the Bowen Island Municipality has sent their letter on LNG. So just, we're looking at the external. But if I could call upon council to please, again, pass receipt of all the correspondence, and then we'll go to external. Thank you, Councillor Bain and Councillor McLaughlin. All those in favor of receipt? Carried unanimously. And receipt for the gallery is simply neither agreement or disagreement, but identifying that it's been received. And so looking at the external correspondence, any other, Councillor Bain?
I found it interesting that we got one from the ambulance paramedics
Yeah.
about the issue that we've been talking about previously about the coverage change for the ambulance service. We have pretty well left it to the bigger communities to have the discussion on it. But I find it interesting that we're getting communication from the ambulance paramedics that want to make the system work better, but I've never had a return call from the head of the fellow that organized this plan after being promised I would get some.
understanding from it.
I saw that they're going to be at the UBCM, and I wonder if, with that in mind, and I know that while you're not attending the UBCM, they've invited interest, and I wonder if you could look to the letter and again attempt to stimulate their interest in contacting us, because I know that there's been several occasions when you have provided that outreach, and when I read the letter, I thought, should Mr. McGradu, Councillor Ronsley, and myself be seeking this while we're up there? But I do think that with that invitation in their letter, if you could make that attempt and then direct us, if that would be helpful.
That'd be fine.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor Bain. If we can then go forward to the internal correspondence, and one of the things that I thought I wanted to check is just that people's internal correspondence, whether it's by reception or whoever, but is they're thanked for the receipt of their correspondence. I just wanted to ensure that, and then see if there were any further notes to make there. Councillor Ando?
I'd like to ask clarification on, I don't know which one this is, but the title of it is Mr. and Mrs. Public Cover reply to your email.
What number is that?
Page number.
Oh, page number, I can give you that. 136.
Thank you. To my email? I'm sorry,
No.
to my email?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm just...
This email, I'm just wondering why it's included in our package.
Okay, give me a call. I do not know. Should I recuse myself again at this
No,
point?
I think
No?
this is just
Okay, this is just
clarification.
procedural?
This is clarifying.
Okay, just to clarify, I'm not...
I'm sorry, what was the question again?
I'm wondering why this letter is in our package.
Well, through you,
Yeah,
Madam Mayor,
yes, I'm sorry.
it states, could you please put this forward on the agenda for the September 2nd meeting? I believe that the discussion at the last meeting is that anything to do with the public covers since the last meeting, we'd be putting forward on the agenda.
From my opinion, this is kind of one-sided because it doesn't show the emails that were before this, and it's like clapping with one hand. So I find it very self-serving, but that's my opinion.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I've had a discussion, and I think we've all had discussions over the past while about correspondence, and I think if anything that I've learned over the last little while is what should be the proper protocol or policy on putting correspondence. I had a discussion with Councillor Bain today about what should be placed on the agenda. And it was a very interesting question, and I'm not sure if he's going to raise it now, but I don't think we have I know we do not have a clear policy on what correspondence should be placed on it. I've had discussions with Ms. Kuntz. We are looking at the procedure bylaw. We would like to bring forward recommendation on exactly how correspondence makes it onto the agenda, so that everybody is clear, and then council can have a very public discussion on the correspondence. And I think, if anything, have we put everything on the agenda? No, and I think, if anything, I can apologize for that. The problem has been is that there's some items that have been redacted and require redacting. When we start looking at trails of emails, one of the problems we've faced is some emails we're getting have a number of other emails attached to it, which means that staff go through each item and they try to figure out how many of these emails are repeated over and over again, which takes staff time. I'm not sure how to solve that problem, but it is a problem in a small place like this. So we're trying to come up, we're discussing this with a couple of other municipalities as well as the LGMA to see if there is a practice that we can implement in Lions Bay. So I know it hasn't been handled properly or well in the past, and I apologize for that. We will attempt to come up with some way that council can look at this. But it is very time consuming, it has been time consuming. What we're trying to do is get this material on that we don't have to go through every email and try to determine if one person sends it to us, then another person sends it to us, and they have copies of the same emails. And so what we're trying to figure out is how to do that.
Okay. Councillor Bain?
Just further to it, Interim CAO McGrady was pointing out, is my interest was, after going through the conversation with the public covers on the issue, we were sending out the impression that somehow we're censoring emails, and that's definitely not our intention. And Mr. McGrady's pointed out, quite thankfully, that he's going to be reviewing it with staff to find out if we can come up with a policy so it's fair and equal for everybody. And I would welcome that and look forward to it.
That's great. Maybe I can just add a little bit. I hope that it's helpful. And that is to say that one of the concerns that may be in this situation is that if something is sent to me, then I send it to reception for going on to the agenda. So this may be where the policy maybe okay. Because I thought, oh gosh, and it's no, you should not be sending it to me. That's what I'm saying. No, you shouldn't be sending it to me. But what I'm saying is, paradoxically, it's a funny thing is that I'll put, as I did today in another email, it is my protocol to send this on to reception. So I'm not saying that you should send it to me, you should not have sent it to me, but it's where the protocol has to be embedded somewhere else, right? So I just want to say thank you to staff, and thank you for any forgiveness that's needed. Okay, but thank you. And to staff, thank you for their work on creating a procedure that makes sense.
May I just please just have, we have not had anything put in the agenda with the exception of this last letter about the censorship. Mr. Broughton, forgive me, has had multiple letters put in regarding this, and we have never had our side of it in here. This is why we come meeting after meeting after meeting. And it would be a very simple matter if we had equal exposure to our side of the issue. And that would be probably the end of it. It could have ended 5 months ago to date. And we will continue to come till our viewpoint is out there. And we want to go through legitimate means rather than out there in other means, out of respect. And we would like the same respect. That's all we're asking for.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. If I can move us along then to any comments.
We're still on correspondence.
We're still on correspondence. Just in terms of the different letters that have been noted, are there any that certainly that staff are working on at this time? Would be my question. I don't want to put you on the spot, so if you could look at that. I'm just thinking of the first letter, which is to do with paving. I'm not aware of the resident, but just I thought, I don't know how these are responded to, but if just knowing that they're responded to by staff, and again that's the protocol that we have. So Mr. McGrady, just say what we would normally say is sort of internal correspondence is in your capable hands. Is that fair to say?
Within staff, and I'll
Yeah.
look and make sure that either the building inspector, the bylaw enforcement officer, Mandy, or somebody has responded.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Councillor Ando?
I just would like to know for 10, 11, 13, and 14, what TS stands for. None of the other ones have that. I don't know what it means.
I do not know. So do you have a page number there for us?
I think you need a page number?
No, they're numbered on.
I know,
the-
but
Yeah, but that's page-
79.
79.
On incoming correspondence, they're identified, and the resident ones are identified
Oh, no, I
with an
see page
R.
79. No,
Yeah.
I'm at page 79, and
And then, so number 10, 11, 13, and 14 all have a R-TS. All the other ones have just R, and I don't know what the TS stands for. If you could.
through you, Madam Mayor, I will
Yeah.
ask Mandy.
I have
That sounds right.
no
That's some
idea.
internal, I don't know.
It just happens to have tree survey hit further in the body on all of these. I'm just, I mean, maybe I'm baking a cake here wrong, but it's
Thank
tree
you.
survey.
yeah, I bet that's what it stands for, but I'm going to put it in
I know,
Mr.
I'll
McGrady's
check it out.
capable hands. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Bain?
If I can mention two more, oh, sorry.
Yes.
No, I'm done.
You're done.
And, yeah.
The first one is on page 105 of 160.
Thank
It has to do with speeding on
Yes.
Bayview Road. And seeing as we live on Bayview Road, I can quite agree with the writer on this one, that a number of people are taking a run at the Bayview Hill, and just as they go by our places, it's a slight downgrade. When they say the driver was driving, going around 70K, it doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, the speeds are great at times, and sorry to every young mother here, but quite often just before 9 o'clock, the speeds even increase greater. We're on a bit of a blind turn there, so it's always been a concern for ours when our children were young. We would make them walk down the street a bit before they cross, because you never know at these higher speeds that people are going to be able to see them. I don't have a solution for this. It's a lousy place to put speed bumps. How often do you call the police out to put radar up? I don't know. There's got to be a better solution somewhere.
I wonder if we could ask perhaps Ernst Voder or ICBC if we can have the electronic sign there. When I was recused on this occasion, I was reading an article in the province newspaper that the City of Victoria is reducing its speed limit to 40 kilometers per hour. And the City of Vancouver is looking at reducing its speed to 40 kilometers per hour because of the safety issues involved in the high speeds. And so 70 kilometers, I'm not surprised either, having lived on that street myself. And one of the longer term solutions is to put like a circadian circle in there so that you don't have a long line, because people are driving to the end all the time, and it increases speed when you're looking a long way away. And that's a real problem that's been noted by the RCMP on that hill. People literally have a long sight line and they drive to that sight line. So it's how to, I think, even write an article in the community news. I don't know if you'd be interested in highlighting that for this community news, but speeding is something that's dangerous in any jurisdiction, but really dangerous in Lions Bay. And the article that's in the province, I don't know whether it was today's province or not, to do with the article that I was reading, is identifying that the side roads are absolutely essential, that speeds are low, because that's where really critical issues occur. And so thank you for raising that. And would you be fine with writing something on it for the community news?
Let's see if I can conjure something up.
Okay, thank you so much.
One more?
Yes, absolutely.
This one from Doug Pollock I found was very interesting. He's talking about parking along Lions Bay Avenue. Not just. Oh, sorry. Next page, 106 of 160. He's sort of discussing the issues of the guest passes. And I thought he had quite a novel idea in the 7th paragraph. He says here, with little effort, guest passes could be sold specific to residents living on the street, I suggest that the village office if you can bear with the wording, would have the resident's address, residence, phone number, and provision requirement to be dated, and undated permits would be invalid. This provision would eliminate their being used more than once. I believe this would be a simple fix to a difficult problem. And the problem being is if you have unexpected guests on the weekend, the village office isn't open, so they can't get passes. And we do our bylaw officer on the weekends often. So they're really in a vulnerable spot. Whereas this way, if they could buy a stack of passes or permits and then date them when they want to use them. And once they're dated, they can't be used again.
Exactly.
And Mr. Pollock's idea wasn't the issue of $1 per pass or whatever it is. The money's not the issue. It's just he wants to find a workable solution to a problem that can be a little concerning for them.
Yes, Mr. McGrattan?
Through you, Madam Mayor. I'm not sure if that was Mr. Pollock's idea or the fire chief's idea, but we've been discussing that over the last few days. It does have appeal, but there may be, and so what we're looking at is that a simple solution may not be simple. Like there's two or three houses on the same street that buy a book. Who gets to go first? So there are some complications to that, but the concept is very good. And we're looking at that, not just for this, but for other areas. But it's a good idea.
Councillor Ronsley.
On that note, and thank you for your comments, which I'm really appreciative of. I wonder if the fee for extra passes might be looked at in a different way in the future. We cannot do it because the passes are out at this point. But perhaps identify those streets which have no parking. I happen to live on Ocean View Road, and there's no problem with there. There's plenty of space. But there are some streets in this community that it's an ongoing problem. And I wondered about, and I think former Mayor Pollock and his wife have some very good ideas here. But I think the whole thing might even be looked at beyond and give just a possibility. This is not an absolute solution at all. Identify the streets that are a problem. Example, Lions Bay Avenue. Give those people who live on that street 4 or 6 extra passes for their occasions. When the family comes and they've got 4 or 6 extra cars, and perhaps they could trade them. I'm not looking at the dollar that we collect, but they could trade them among each other with one family's got a party of one day and one another day, and it would somehow create an amenable situation without having to involve the issuance of the extra pass, the collection of the fees, and so forth. So I think the first thing I would like to see happen is identify those streets in the community that are problematical and consistently our problem. We know some of them, and then go on from there and kind of look at a fresh way at how to handle parking on those streets, where some of us on the street, in this council, live on a street where there isn't a problem. I don't want the extra passes for it, but if I have a big party, not planning it, I am happy to alert a wedding, or something like that, to alert the office that I'm having this big party and there'll be a bunch of people, bunch of cars, and ahead of time, not after the fact. And so it could be on the information that's there. That's only a tiny bite on the problem here.
Mr. McGrattan.
Mayor, trees, dogs, and parking.
Yes.
It's most of any municipal council's life. Next week, there will be a report coming forward on parking. And you'll have an opportunity to see what the fire chief and our manager of public works are recommending with respect to parking and within the village. We also had a meeting last week, 3 weeks ago, I guess it was, in the last few weeks, with their marina operator and the challenges there. It's only for a very short period of time where we have
Yes.
a lot of the problems down in Lions Bay. But there are problems if we hand out too many passes. And so let's say if one particular street, everybody chooses to buy passes. So what we're trying to figure out is, there's ways that we can walk forward with it. The concept passes looks easy and it looks good, but then we started throwing out some what ifs. So you'll have an opportunity to have a fulsome discussion next week, or on the 16th.
I would suggest that perhaps you, at some point, include Councillor Ando and myself, who are have the parking portfolio, because we've had some experience, both of us, with particular problems, and it might be helpful before recommendations made. So thank you very much for that.
Councillor Ando?
I believe I wrote a report in 2012 with some recommendations, actually, and one of them was exactly what's being suggested here. But I don't think that we had the staff to follow through with it at the time. But and then even at that time, when it did come to the council table and we decided to try and add some no parking signs on Seaview, council decided that we needed to notify the residents, and I took a letter door to door to all of the residents on Seaview to ensure that they received it and to give them time to provide their feedback on making that street with no parking. So parking is very delicate. We've dealt with it to a small degree in the past, and I'd hate to see all that work that Joanne and I did in the past not be at least not
reviewed.
Necessarily acknowledged, but at least be reviewed so that anything useful can be used in going forward.
Councillor Ando, can you pass along that document to staff?
I will look for it.
Okay, thank you very much, or Councillor Ronse, or both. Thanks so much. If we can move along to new business, which is parking enforcement and ticket purchases, but it's simply a report. We've predominantly reported already on it, but I want to thank Mandy Kuntz for providing this report at my request. At that time where the confluence of all the issues with building and some clarity needed to be organized in all of our minds. And that has occurred, so I really want to thank staff very much for that. And the clarity as outlined in for the bylaw, and then Mark Chutka, who started as a bylaw enforcement officer for the village on behalf of the village August 7th. And so I will go to you in just a moment. Councillor Ando, thank you so much for your hand. So just wanting to predominantly just receive this report, and it's obviously dovetailed into the broader discussion with the fire chief as well. So Councillor Ando?
So this report got me to think that a resident had approached me and said, for example, on Upper Bayview, where some of the no parking signs had gone up, and there was a lot of them, that they thought that it might be easier and more cost effective to just put signs of where you could park, rather than saying, don't park here and don't park there. Let's just, if there's limited space in a particular street, say there are 6 spots here, you can park between these 2 signs, and then the rest. That was his suggestion, so I'm not taking any credit for that.
No.
And so I passed that along to staff, that might be a more positive way for the image of the village, rather than us always saying no, no, no. We could say park here. That was his suggestion. So
Mr. McGrady?
Through the Mayor, that's an interesting turn of events. However, if we are going to fine or ticket, then there are certain regulations we have to follow, including, if we have to go to mediation or actually go through it. As I said, next week, or the 16th, we'll have an opportunity to have a fulsome discussion. Parking is a challenge in this village. You have a short period of time in the summer that it's very problematic, and then we have a problem when it snows, where is problematic. And so the fire chief has been having discussions and been looking at it, and he's, if anybody knows the community well and the challenges, the fire chief does. And so looking forward to that discussion.
Okay. Councillor Ando, we've just got 5 more minutes, and I think we can actually come to that potentially with an extension to the meeting. But Councillor Ando.
So with these reports that are coming, if they're prepared before, I would like them to be put on the website as drafts, because we don't get very much public input as to what's in a report, and we don't, so I feel it's important, especially something like parking, which is one of your big 3, that the community should have a say. So if the report is done next week sometime, and it's a week before the 16th, if you could post the draft, maybe there's some problems with that, but I don't know. So that people know that we're going to be discussing it, and they could come and they could voice their opinion, or they could write in a submission, so that, because I'm not sure whether collectively the group of us, and even with Fire Chief Oliver, that we could come up with the best, there may be a better solution. With more minds that we put at this, the better solution we may be able to have. So I open that up to staff, that if that's a possibility, that they're able to do that.
Through you, Madam Mayor, one of the dogs, trees, and parking, there's not an intention to immediately change the regulation. I think it does need to have community discussion, and at the very least it needs to be explained well to the community. And so that's one of the things that the report's going to be talking about. And so fully accept, and that was one of your strong recommendations, is that it engages the community, so at least they know why. They may not agree, but at least they know why.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that as well. So I'm going to move us along, with Council's permission, to Into the Future, the Coquitlam Health Campus. The City of Coquitlam is petitioning the provincial government to have Riverview made into a health campus rather than redeveloped into housing. This is really, from my perspective, a brilliant plan. It's one that's been in the hearts of... we did receive... Did we receive correspondence? Oh, we didn't? Oh, I'm sorry. On correspondence? I move receipt of correspondence. Didn't we move in second? Councillor Bain, Councillor Ronsley will do it again. And call question on the motion. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thanks very much. So what we have here is a resolution that has been passed forward, and we've put the Village of Lions Bay. In addition to that, Ms. Kuntz has prepared simply a wonderful letter from Mayor and Council on this subject matter that would be found on page 153, signed by myself as mayor, supporting this. So the resolution is, whereas the Village of Lions Bay Council recognizes the substantial need for increased opportunities to address health and mental health care needs in communities across the province, and whereas the Village of Lions Bay Council believes these initiatives are best served with community-based facilities and services, therefore be it resolved that the Village of Lions Bay Council endorses the City of Coquitlam's principle that the Riverview land should remain under public ownership, and that the Village of Lions Bay support the City of Coquitlam's vision for the land to be utilized for the proposed Coquitlam Health Campus as detailed in the report titled Coquitlam Health Campus, an Overview, which is included in your package. Could I have a mover and seconder? Thank you, Councillor Ronsley and Councillor Bain. Any discussion? Call question on the motion. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. That letter of endorsement will go out and to the copies as requested. I'll move us along then, though, to item 12C, community facilities rentals. Yes, Mr. McGrattan.
This report, community facility rentals, and the next report, which is the refunds and cancellations, are policies that staff are recommending that the community, if anything, I guess, comment on. The As was stated, this is something that needs to be put onto our website
Oh,
so
great,
that
for
the community can read it and see what, as we move forward. We will have a new facility, and we're hoping that it will be well used, and so that's one of the things we want to talk about. The real new issue is going to be the SOCAN fees, and I think the community needs to understand that that is not an option. I know there's going to be some people that don't like it, and we're going to try to avoid it, but that is legislation, and our understanding in discussing this with other communities who have had legal advice on this is that SOCAN will be coming and are very diligent in finding. So again, what we're recommending is that these two reports be received for information, and they'll be brought forward on the September 16th. They'll be on our website, and then we'll be bringing forward the fees and charges bylaw, and then you'll have an opportunity, and the community will have an opportunity to read these and make any comments for the 16th.
Okay, that's excellent, and certainly when I read it, I was initially questioning what is SOCAN, what is SOCAN. Should it be SOCAN or Society of Composers, Authors, and Music Publishers, pardon me? But maybe it is SOCAN.
SOCAN.
Okay.
That's the acronym.
That's the acronym, okay. Okay, so that will go up on our website for comment.
So the resolution really should be, so the council receive this for information and be brought forward to the
Okay, so if council can
16th
receive
meeting.
this, 12C, the community facility rentals, and 12D, refunds and cancellations, for information at this time and to be posted on the website for comment. Could I have somebody move and second? Thank you, Councillor Ronsley and Councillor Ando. Any discussion? Call question on the motion. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. We are now at 10:01. I'm going to look to public participation, and if there is none, I'm going to close the meeting. If there is any public participation, I will have to ask for a continuing motion past 10 o'clock. Just if I can ask council if we can have a motion of continuance for what period of time?
30 minutes.
Pardon me. I
30
just
minutes.
have to call
Just
this.
minutes.
If I could please call this to order. And
How long is it?
the 10 minutes is the maximum public question time
Yeah,
period.
10 minutes.
So if we could call a continuance motion for 12 minutes, that would be fine. For a maximum of 12 minutes, so move. Second, thank you very much. Call question on the motion. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. So if we can then go to public participation, and that is for 2 minutes each, if you will. Ms. Nelson?
I just on a point of order before we start, like 2 minutes. At which meeting did they change it from 30 minutes at the end of a meeting to suddenly 10? I can't remember what day the resolution was taken. I don't think it was.
We have been always going with 10 minutes. at
No,
the end
the
of the
bylaw states 30 minutes.
Yeah.
The bylaw.
Up
And
to.
that bylaw hasn't yet been reviewed, as a point of order.
Extended for 10 minutes.
30 minutes.
We've extended it
30
for 12
minutes
minutes.
is- 30 minutes
We've
is fine.
extended the meeting for 12 minutes, so if we can just go with that. And thank you for pointing that out. I wasn't aware of that, so thank
So
you.
you're in breach of bylaw. You
I-
have to make it 30 minutes. You don't have to use all 30, but you
Up
have to make
to.
30 minutes.
Is
I'd
it
also
up?
like to just make a
Would it be
small
up,
suggestion, just
Grant?
because
Yes,
we've all stayed very late.
Is it
Just
up
uplift
to
your
30
outfit.
minutes?
So, Joanne,
Listen, I really have to call us to order.
I am in order. I
Yeah.
just would like to make a small suggestion, is that we've sat here until very late, and there's been a lot of unnecessary talk around this table that we've had to sit and listen to, and I think these meetings could be far more compact if everybody would just stick to what's under discussion and just really limit what we have to sit through. It's a big agenda tonight, I agree.
Yes.
But the thing is that with all this, I hate to say this, with self-congratulatory stuff, we don't have to hear it every time.
But that's,
And
that's,
my first
that's,
question.
I'm sorry, I just must move us along here.
Let me ask the
Are
first
you in your
question.
2 minutes? Could we ask that the 2 minutes begin and that we maintain a respectful decorum? I know. I'm making eye contact here. No, in a happy way. Just not looking at you, but just looking to you.
This is exactly the kind of talk that I'm referring to. So my first question has to do with the bylaw officer. And I would like to point out that, I would like to ask who defined the hours for the bylaw officer's current schedule?
We'll note that question and perhaps get that. I have no idea, so I'll just ask staff to note the question.
When can I expect an answer on that? I'll tell you why it's important. It's because that most of the problems we have in the village don't occur within the hours that the bylaw officer works. And in fact, a lot of the parking problems that we have is during the week, during office hours, on blind corners. Fred lives on Bayview. He knows there's big construction going on that blind rise. It's very dangerous from the top of the village all the way to the bottom. And there's no one to call.
If I can just call upon Mr. McGrady first and then Councillor Ronsley, if I could, in that.
Madam Mayor, you asked the question about what happens during the day. During the day, we have the fire chief, who is a bylaw officer, and is able to give tickets.
He works out of town.
Do you mind?
I just have to, I'm going to call the gallery to order. Within my mandate is a civil code and respectful code. Mr. McGrady is speaking, and so I really must ask of the gallery what we're providing as well in a respectful manner.
Okay,
Mr.
the
McGrady?
fire chief is a bylaw officer and is able to issue tickets and determine whether a vehicle can be towed. In addition, the building inspector is also able to issue tickets.
Now, Andrew works outside of the village, so he's not available during the week. And if Dave Butler is happening not to be on duty because he's only really part-time, then the default is that we have to call the office. I don't think that's a good plan because the office is just swamped.
Thank you for that.
And they're not necessarily the right people to be going out there telling contractors to move their large lorries. And that's why I think we really need to look at when he's available. My other question has to do with the oil heaters in the hall. In January 2013, I asked why the CATF wasn't involved in this project at all. And I would like to know if anyone has assessed how having oil heaters in our municipal building will impact our meeting the targets set by the province on reducing our greenhouse gas emissions and our municipal buildings being carbon neutral. And I think the deadline is 2020.
Mm-hmm. The question has been asked, I'll just say that, and the cost of that transition was felt prohibitive. I certainly was very keen to make that transition, but
I don't think we have a choice in that though, because the province has laid down those reduction targets.
I just need to state that that was what the process was in the decision, and certainly I thank you for bringing that forward. If I can, Mr. Stone.
Thank you. I want to start off by reminding council and residents that it was a certain Mr. Consultant, I think it was at the last meeting, who introduced the term liar to the meeting. And if anybody should be possibly giving a public apology, it may well be Mr. Consultant for bringing that into the council meeting. I'm concerned about the provincial grant. I've heard on no less than 2 occasions Mrs. Broughton indicate that the provincial grant from the Recreation, Culture and Sport was modified or changed in the scope. And after making requests for freedom of information, I was told there were no such documentations. I would like to see the documentation, Mrs. Broughton, where you show that the provincial grant, the $440,343 was in fact approved, changed. It doesn't exist, and you've at least twice made that statement.
The statement that I'm making is that we had discussed this with the provincial government, and they had, whether the scope is the same or different, they had said that we would be able to go forward. They had a new person on the file. It would take 6 weeks, etc. So that's the point that I'm making, Mr. Stone. And in fact, I believe that, I don't know if Mr. McGrady would want to make comment on that, but those discussions have continued.
Well, that's word of mouth. There's no evidence. So we're looking for some evidence, documentation, Mrs. Broughton. There is none, okay? 726 square feet of space was supposed to be included in the provincial grant, which is a major issue. What is council doing to provide for that 726 square feet of activity space, which is the basis for the provincial grant?
Thank you, Mr. Stone. If you could just complete over the next
30 seconds.
30 seconds. Thank you,
Thank
Councillor
you.
Ronsley.
I also have some concerns about speeding and road signs in the village. Coming down Lions Bay Avenue, you know this, Mrs. Broughton, there's a sharp turn when you come in, and that speed limit has been 40 kilometers per hour. Prior to that, I think it was 30 miles per hour, and that's way too fast. There are many, many cars that squeal out, mostly visitors. The maximum should be 15 kilometers, and I would like to see that possibly amended and fixed because it's dangerous. I would also like to see the speed limit on Lower Lions Bay to 30 because we have a lot of pedestrians and people over there. We also have an unlevel railroad crossing, and over the years, many low-bedded, long trucks have been stuck for 7, 8, 9, 10 hours on the railroad track, and we don't have any signage there. We need some kind of signage for warning for them.
Thank you very much. If I can then call upon council to move adjournment.
What about the 726 square feet? You
I-
haven't responded
That
to.
has been noted, and I'm going to
But
move us
council's
along.
supposed to respond, not just if you know the answer, you're supposed to respond.
I'm putting it forward to Mr. McGrady. and-
Okay, does he have a response?
The public participation, I don't believe, is a Q&A if there's no response coming forward. I'm going to have to obviously
You've been mayor for...
review this. Yes, this portion of the bylaw was just initiated, I don't know, a couple of years ago, and I obviously am operating under misunderstanding about the length of time, et cetera. So I obviously need to brush up on that. I don't know where we are time-wise, but I'll take one last speaker, if I may. Mr. Abbott?
Just apologise earlier for me on my outburst during the meeting. I was reading the minutes, not following the agenda, when you were on unfinished business, and from the minutes from last meeting state that I came forward with an issue. The public works staff interim CEO responded to my concerns. In fact, he read out something that was of a different time and in the wrong street. In the meeting, on the audio, you can hear him say, yes, I'll find it, I think, to the mayor. But what the minutes do state is the council requested the interim CEO, McGrady, further research the matter. To me, that means it's unfinished business. I'm confused why it wasn't carried on, and this is how things just die, and people don't get answers to their questions, and people think they did answer their questions. So I assume that is still ongoing, and Councillor McGrady, Mr. McGrady cannot find the report he was referring to. The other issue I just wanted to make was on a seminar on the same issue. Councillor Ronsley earlier said that the tree bylaw was going to be reviewed, or her opinion should be reviewed, and whether it's going to happen in this council or the next council. The fact is that the existing bylaw exists. It's very specific. It needs to be fairly and equitably enforced to all, and a lot of these issues would go away.
Thank you very much. And I'll just ask Mr. McGrady if he can get back on the points that you're making to you, Mr. Abbott. And thank you for those points. I'm going to call upon council to move adjournment before each of you fall asleep. I can see a couple of tired eyes in the audience. Could I have council please move and second? Thank you, Councillor Bain and Councillor Ando. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you so much to one and all, and to Ms. Carol Lee. Thank
Grant, Grant, suggestions for your parking meeting?
I can see that you maybe should be sitting on this committee. You've got sparkle in your eye. You may have the energy to help people with wind under the wings. Very interesting. This is guys from Ben.